6 and 10 Sundown Trail.
Oh, okay, so online we have Tom and Patricia, and Jack told me he's going to be here, in person.
You said 6:10 or I missed one.
There we go.
Sorry,
You said 6:10 or?
6 and 10. So I want to combine
Oh,
6
6
and 10.
Actually,
Yeah.
Tom, can you confirm that you can hear us? Okay, great, thank you.
Well, I think we can call to order then at 6:48 p.m. And the first thing on the agenda is to approve March's meeting minutes. So I'm looking for a motion or any comments on those.
I move that we approve the minutes.
I'll second that. So we'll call a vote. Rich,
Yes.
Brad,
Yes.
Tom. And myself is yes.
Sorry, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you. You can.
I saw you mouth the word yes. So meeting minutes are approved.
Great.
Next thing on the agenda is subcommittee updates, starting with the zero waste subcommittee.
Yes, and we haven't met since, or we have met,
We met
sorry,
this week.
we
yeah,
met
this month.
or this month. It was just like
Yeah.
earlier this month. Yes, on the 2nd, and we talked about, let's see. We're still currently working with Wild Bear on creating a household battery drop off. And so that is something that will probably be run by Wild Bear. And we'll have to start with just like non-hazardous household batteries, so not like lithium ion or anything because of the liability with that. So we are going to see how we can. Oh, hello.
Hey.
the music was just loud.
We're going to see how we can get the word out about that and make sure that it's being monitored so that people are putting the right batteries in there. And then it sounds like for right now, Sam from Wild Bear is planning on like transporting them down to the hazardous materials management facility in Boulder. And we're gonna talk about like how sustainable that is, but it's probably gonna be like a once a month thing. So yeah, that is where we're at with that. We heard that the compost facility is still in the works. And the LED sign is likely going to be placed on the pole barn. That will be the reuse barn. And let's see.
And I think we still need ideas about that LED sign, how we're gonna use it.
Yeah.
I had asked the county what the resolution is gonna be, because if we're planning on showing videos, I think we would want at least standard definition or something like that. It's not even gonna be close to that. It's gonna be something like less than 100 lines, in each direction. So I think it's it's only gonna be useful for text, I think, with that level of resolution.
Yeah, and we were talking about like sound doesn't really make sense, especially if people are in their cars or something.
Yeah. And the transfer station can be noisy from time to time. So, I don't know what we're gonna, I think people had ideas, we show videos or something, but it's just not gonna work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's a lot of good ideas that we had, including LED sign messaging. We talked about like, putting up messages about like what you can't throw in the recycling, like people put bear spray in the recycling and we don't want that there. But like, put an image of a bear or something to like capture their attention. And then we also talked about like, making sure people know that gift wrap can't be put in recycling, only corrugated cardboard in the cardboard crusher, those sorts of things. And then like different town events. So like when cleanup day is going to happen, which we're going to talk about later, farmers markets, things kind of related to circular economy, zero waste things, maybe even like power outage, if there's like a planned power outage and that's gonna like mean the transfer station is closed or something, we can, work with Boulder County to make sure those sorts of like messages are up beforehand. Yeah, and we got all like the info for the resolution, so we can like start making those messages now and kind of vet them before we have the sign up and we start putting them up.
I have some suggestions. I
Yeah.
think it would be good to also include, maybe some fun facts about like why it's important to recycle or why it's important to compost. Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know they're out there.
My favorite is that recycling an aluminum can saves 95% the energy of making a new one.
Yeah.
I love
kind
that
of
one.
stuff.
Nice.
Right.
In between, kind of giving people that reason to pay attention to their trash as well.
Definitely.
An EcoCycle probably has a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
I can share.
Yeah, and then that was the other idea I had, is just like where to seek more research. Is like, are you interested about at-home composting? Then check out this website. Are you interested about, recycling hazardous materials? Check out Charm. Just kind of helpful facts like that too, of where to get more info.
That's got me thinking. I've never gotten a flyer at the transfer station about anything.
Mm-hmm.
About like where to take hard to recycle materials and such,
Or like
or
backyard compost.
Yeah.
Or like a rebate program that the county's offering.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've never gotten a flyer. I've never gotten like just like conversations,
Yeah.
right?
Do we get feedback on how clean the single stream is?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay, maybe it goes down to the sorting center and then.
Yep, so they get about 11% trash landfill at the recycling center.
It's so much.
But
They-
but that's actually pretty, I think it's
I thought that was
not
good.
much.
Yeah.
And they can manage it because they have their sorting,
Yeah.
right, set up. But like compost, you have to have less than 1% contamination, right? So that's single stream, I think in Boulder County is doing pretty good.
If they
Yeah.
do have a particular issue, then the transfer station is pretty good about communicating that to the community. Like there was a point where they were getting something in the recycling bin that wasn't recyclable.
Yeah.
And so they kind of promoted that message for like a month or so, to cut down on it.
Yeah, bear spray, like Cass said, and then propane canisters and then plastic bags.
Yep.
Like those actually jeopardize human health because it's really not safe for them to pull those out of the machines.
Yeah.
So those are kind of at least as of late.
I do have info from Mikkel from Boulder County on how much, in terms of like tons we are getting each month,
Mhm.
for trash, metal, single stream, cardboard, appliances, mattresses and compost. So that's helpful. And I can also ask them if there is a way to like track contamination in case we're interested, but I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know how they track that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is there any way to, I mean, this is, I'm not sure how to go about doing this effectively, but is there any way to just say, hey, if we see you putting in something that's not authorized for recycling, it's a $10 fine or something? I mean, it's more about putting that in people's mind than it is actually collecting the money, but just to let people know that it's serious.
So at the transfer station, they have like signs up that say, this is Patricia, by the way. At the transfer station, they say like no household trash, and there's like signs and like notifications about it when you're doing recycling, and like that's kind of all they do. And there's not the human power resources for people to track what's going on, but they do have signs up. And I did want to add, when Boulder County changed its composting from the previous provider to A1, they did like update what can and can't be compostable. So I thought that there's like some good information about that. But I mean, I feel like a lot of this stuff we're talking about is so basic. It truly is like kind of like blowing my mind that we're having these conversations in 2025, but you got to start somewhere. And Erica, thank you for providing some updates on the percentage of
Ty is maybe
materials that are actually
to get
recyclable.
let in.
Like that to me makes me feel better.
Or he's
So,
on the wrong
thank
one.
you.
Yeah, so Patricia, always good to hear from you.
I don't see him in the waiting room, so maybe I'll
Is,
send him.
is contamination in the single stream a problem?
It's
No,
really
no,
a
no,
county
I don't.
issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and I haven't heard any qualms from the county.
I only asked
No,
about it
I haven't
because
either. I'm just saying, like, when it was this switching over for composting, when it changed over to A1, and they were like, here's what can and cannot be compostable. So there's no problems. I think it's great, everything we're doing. I'm just thinking like broader messages, like these are basic things that you would think in 2025 we shouldn't be having to like
Just send him the link.
explain what's going on. That's what I'm saying to the general public, not within like what's actually happening.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys. Like, I still think recycling is confusing.
I think it's confusing because
Yeah.
everywhere it's different, you know?
Yeah, everywhere's different. Although at least in Boulder County, like, you know, they take most everything, but like plastic cups can't be recycled.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what number they are,
Mhm.
right? It's the shape. You can't have a wider top than you do a bottom. But I don't know why that's an issue. But you just know, like, solo cups can't be recycled. Plastic, even any plastic cup, right, can't be recycled.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, as far as I understand it, it's because it's about the way the little sensor eye
yeah,
identifies different materials.
Mhm.
yeah. Learning something.
specific.
Yeah.
Right. But so I really feel for people when they're like, well, is this recycling or is it not? You know, like some of our bags, right? The number 5 bags, like what a rotisserie chicken, like I just bought today, comes in. You know, it's not recyclable
Hi, Ty.
because of its shape,
Hello,
but it's
sorry.
number 5. I could see the argument of it should be if it's clean, you know, or like the peanut butter jar, how clean does it need to be? Like it's hard.
Yeah. Yep.
Just clean enough for your dog to be leaving it alone.
Yes, exactly.
Which is really clean for my dog.
That's my standard as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder,
Stops licking and starts chewing.
I believe Colorado passed something about producer responsibility.
Yeah,
Right?
I just listened to a presentation on that.
Yeah, so I'd be interested to see how that comes into play with situations like that, because then the producer might be mandated to only give us something that is recyclable in our area. But how are they gonna deal with that with so many different ways of recycling?
They'll give us paper
don't know.
cups,
Yeah.
not as good as plastic cups.
Don't get me started.
Yes,
Ross.
Hey, I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Can someone catch me up?
Yeah, we're just, I was giving updates from the zero waste subcommittee. So we were just talking about, the transfer station and recycling, materials in general, kind of. I don't know that the conversation was going anywhere specific.
Okay.
But you might have an answer to one of our questions, which is how big of a problem is contamination of the recycling at the transfer station right now?
I can't tell you how big of a problem it is, but I know in order for them to save time, they will, if they see contamination in recycling, they will like throw away like a huge container of recycling. So like,
Okay,
Yeah, because they don't want to waste time and be like, oh, well, we're not going to waste time picking through the recycling, pulling out contaminants.
And that could be why the landfill rate at the recycling center is so low. Is because the transfer stations are catching it before it ever actually gets down there and just
Yeah.
sending it straight to landfill.
Yeah, and I will say, like, Billy is like super diligent with telling people, oh, no bags. Like, even if he doesn't see anything, he just like reminds them, no bags. There's a trash can for bags next to the recycling. And he goes through and says, nope, you can't put that. You can't do this, this, and this, and this. And like, he recognizes everybody. And so a lot of people he recognizes, he doesn't have to say that. If he doesn't recognize you, he's going to tell you. So I can vouch for that.
I'd be curious, Cass, what you heard at the extended producer responsibility meeting recently.
Yeah, so it specifically was talking to members of like the Rocky Mountain North American Hazardous Materials Management Association, because they had a conference this week. And so they were basically Liz Chapman, the chair of the Circular Action Alliance Advisory Board, was talking, and the Circular Action Alliance is essentially made up of producers, so mostly brand owners, who are the ones paying for this program. So all producers that have that create a package that a consumer can pull off a shelf, so that's like everything, are supposed to create, things that create packaging that can be recycled, and then the producers pay service providers. They basically reimburse the costs of them to pick up more recycling. It's mostly, she was talking about the fact that there's like petroleum products that contaminate like plastic bins, or like, like basically if you're buying like oil for your car, that can't go in like a typical recycling bin. You have to decontaminate it first. And so they're going to pay for the extra infrastructure and the pickup, the treatment, the recycling for those kinds of packages, because those are harder because they have hazardous materials in them. And so I think the producer's responsibility is to make sure that it is recyclable, and then the association or the alliance will actually pay for like the end recycling of it. Does that make sense?
Is there's a fee or there's something assessed to the producers? Like with pen frames, computers typically have that.
They're paying for all of it.
Yeah.
That's the whole goal.
And then it sets up end of life, like an end of life fund. And it's presumably, like, I would assume that gets passed on to the customer implicitly through pricing, or?
No, so we've been
Is there-
having a lot of conversations about
Yeah.
this, specifically with homeowners associations, because they manage a lot of people's hauling
Yeah.
contracts. And so it depends on if you have that written out, like what is the recycling cost that you pay? Because just that recycling cost is going to be compensated through the EPR starting in 2026. So theoretically, yes, but I think there's some this is why the alliance is so important in this advisory board. They're just trying to figure out how to unroll this. And there's only a few states with EPRs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
That's
Yeah.
sweet. I mean, it's huge, right? Like most of the recycling problem is producer oriented.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the question about getting passed on to customers on the front end when you purchase, like in most markets where I've looked at EPR, you see higher prices for the item at purchase. Is that generally how this would be presumed to work?
I mean, I think
Market.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's
That's-
gonna depend on the company.
Yeah,
right? And so
I
I
think
think
so.
we could guess that a lot of producers would do that, but it's not necessarily part of the.
It's outside the bounds.
system.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Okay, sweet.
The only thing I heard specifically about municipalities and consumers not having to pay more is like the service providers who are picking up the recycling cannot charge a municipality or a consumer like additionally for this like extra material that they're picking up. So
Mhm.
that's not passed on to the consumer at least, but but I don't know from, the like actual product side if that would be price increase.
And it should theoretically compensate like Boulder County for hauling any of our single stream from the transfer station. They should not have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyone that like has recycling pickup from Western, or any other hauler, that should be free to them starting
Yeah.
in 2026.
I'd be curious to see what are their priority like materials to address.
Yeah, that would be this advisory board.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
no problem. And I can always, reach out and ask more specific questions if anyone is wondering about that.
So another piece of that, so Liz Chapman is the executive director for Recycle Colorado.
Mhm.
And I don't think memberships are that expensive. So if there is funds that the Sustainability Advisory Board could tap into, so it's not on the town to pay for, it could be a very worthwhile membership from my limited experience. They're leaders in that space. And I think if we wanted to support their work, especially with like EPR advocacy and things like that, it's a worthwhile membership. I think it's like $500 a year.
Okay. I will.
We can definitely look
Yeah.
into it. If not, there
Yeah.
might be some kind of, I mean, I'm basically giving all my training budgeting to Cass anyway. So she can get,
But so like the
figure something.
construction and demolition funds.
Yeah.
Is there any money in that pot?
I
zero
have to see how
waste?
that's being budgeted now.
Okay.
Yeah, because it all swapped up last year. Some of it pays for Cass's match.
We also don't have like a full year's worth of it yet.
Yeah.
We don't know how much.
Super
total
weird.
we'll
Yeah, let me
get.
get with Rita on that, but I see where all of that's going, because I mean, there's a portion that essentially would go back. And I don't know if that goes to Cass's or if that sits in a fund for like the
Yeah.
people who never,
And for how long?
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I'll double check on that.
A municipal bronze partner, which I think is the lowest level for a government, is 1,500. But then there's also community partner. That I don't know if they'd accept us as like just the sustainability advisory board as a group. That's 350.
Okay.
I think that's what we have here. It's just that, and it's for the town. It's not even.
It is for
advisory
the
board.
town.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that. And then just the last thing for zero waste, was a conversation I had with Nikki, about the trash cans, idea. And what I heard from Nikki was that, she only needs one or two more trash cans in town. I think her main concern is illegal dumping, because that's why they got rid of a lot of trash cans in the past. She gave me the budget for that and it was 1,800 per can. And NDDA has mentioned that they are still interested in like funding that, because they've been trying to get trash cans. And so it sounds like that might be the route that we take for the cans. And then we also talked to them about the art idea of trying to get, basically Nikki thought like stickers that we could put on the cans, with education on them. And then the youth advisory board was interested in helping with that, the design of those educational components. And then ordering a few of those stickers so that like over time as the cans get dirty and they're washing them every week, but as they get dirty, like we can replace those. And I think all of that could be funded by the NDDA if they're like in agreement, which I'm going to their next meeting. I think it's the 14th of May. So that is kind of the direction we're gonna go with the trash cans for now. But that means that we would not be using the C3 grant for that funding, and therefore we'd be like eligible for, you know, a different use of that grant for this calendar year, because you can apply for one grant from them per calendar year. One idea that a zero waste subcommittee member Cinda mentioned was purchasing tabletop compost bins to give away to residents kind of in advance of the new compost unit at the transfers facility coming up and running soon. And then I had talked to Erica about an event she did where Erie gave out compost to residents. And I thought maybe if we, you know, don't have our composting unit up and running yet, if we're giving away compost bins and it's also spring, we could think about like purchasing compost from A1 Organics and giving some of that away to residents kind of in a composting awareness event. But that's just one idea, and I'm open to hearing other ones or what you think about that.
Can I tell you about this event real quick?
I want to say that we've tried that idea before. I'm trying to find it in the drive. Go ahead.
Compost.
Compost buckets, yeah,
So,
to give out to residents.
so we just got 30 square yards of compost delivered from A1. This was a couple weekends ago. It was a little chilly, not a great day, but it was so fun, just like playing in the dirt and giving dirt out to people. We just did a few hours and then we had leftovers, so we just had it available to folks to come as they wanted and they were interested. We got like the organic top of the line from A1. And there still was some little pieces of plastic in it and stuff, but it's like it's their best. It's their Eco Plus that they make. And we talked to Clinton, who's their marketing manager at A1, and something I didn't really think about, but he was sharing that really building this relationship with compost for residents is almost like a gateway drug, right? For them then understanding the value of the product and then being interested in backyard or being interested in the compost collection at the transfer station. So he was really excited about that. It also, you know, it was the first time, so we didn't have as many people as we thought. But Lafayette gave us some advice beforehand, and they do 100 square yards. And they get it from their relationship with Republic as their hauler for the city. And it goes in like a few hours. So 3 times what we had for 4 hours, you know, days, actually we had it for days after. They can do it in just a couple of hours, but they've also had it for a few years now. So people know to look out for it. We did 2 wheelbarrows max, just so that we didn't have one person come in and take all of it with like a front end loader or something, or a little like digger. But people are really excited. It was cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and it smells really good.
I was gonna say, can I throw in something random? I just read this on the staff report yesterday for PC, and I don't know if, I'm sure it hasn't been brought to you guys' attention yet, but I did want to let you know, utilities brought back their first load of compost created by our biosolids. So that is available to residents and for town projects. Sorry, I don't know, that's kind of relevant to this, but I just wanted to throw that out there real quick, because I saw it on their report. So just,
And it's for,
Biosolids?
that's a good question. I should probably reach out to Andrew, because I'm not 100%.
Let me ask it more, Jeff. What is biosolids?
Smells like poop.
our poop.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And it's for non-food.
Non-food
use.
Non-food use, yeah, it's just super rant, sorry,
Don't put it on
not
your
to
garden.
take away.
No,
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, I should probably bring this up to you guys while we're on compost.
and that could be
Talk.
something like you could have different piles,
Yeah,
right? Say
Real
here's for your
non-food.
like your backyard, right? Here's
Yeah.
for your grass, what grass you may have.
yeah,
And then here's for your vegetable gardens, you know,
yeah.
food for thought. For dirt, for food, for thought.
Stars are biosolids.
Food- For food for thought.
Something else that I haven't talked to Andrew or really anyone at the town about yet, but just like something that I thought about at the conference yesterday was that C3 will provide funding for biochar and biogas as part of like circular economy infrastructure and such. And so I didn't know if that was something that we should look into pursuing for the wastewater treatment plant. Because Andrew seems very interested in like any ways that we can use, you know, the end product or byproducts.
Yeah, I had thought they had talked about at one point, and maybe they just could never work it out, of using any extra heat they produce for the Teen Zinc building right
Hmm.
next door.
Those projects are often quite challenging economically, especially from an operating perspective.
They're not designed into, like if biogas isn't designed in, but, yeah, I would not go with biochar.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's something that I've looked into in a professional manner, and it's questionable at best whether or not there are actually benefits to it, depends on how it's actually done.
Interesting.
What? That is not my experience. So now I really want to talk about this.
Yeah, let's have a biochar.
We should have a biochar deep dive, because Boulder County just developed a mobile unit to process biochar.
Okay.
But
There's
I
often,
mean, it definitely depends how it's done and what the source is, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're taking a source that is otherwise could be used for different, those premium sources, they could otherwise be used for other purposes that are higher up on the chain.
yeah,
And, not using something that would be best used in its next iteration as.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like the
So-
city of Minneapolis is developing a whole biochar facility right now. There's another
Are
town.
they taking
yeah,
like whole trees and turning?
I don't know,
biochar?
like that's over. my-
Because that's what I encountered on an industrial scale.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think it's like, yeah,
that's waste to energy is like.
It's like trees to waste.
Yeah. I mean,
Trees to green waste.
We had a biomass plant that was installed maybe 20 years ago, still running, still producing energy. It was a big part of the institutions like net zero carbon plan. And they were trying to run it off waste and ended up planting a bunch of different climate willow. Basically a willow grove that was explicitly to feed it. And it
wow.
was like you're just extracting from the soil
Mhm.
and then burning it. So it's mixed.
So maybe we should have a conversation about that if people are interested at the next meeting or a future meeting. Cause like, even if we were to pursue something like this, we'd want to do, we'd probably want to use some of C3's technical assistance just to do a feasibility study and see if that's even like something we could do up here economically too.
my guess is Boulder County is gonna be using the sort yard for biochar. Like they're moving forward
Okay.
on this mobile unit. So it may be something that's not even worth us to talk about, but to ask Boulder County, we can
Mhm.
talk about for sure, right? Like we should have a conversation, decide how we feel as a group.
Are they incinerating compost or what are they incinerating?
I don't know, again, like we need more questions, have more questions than we have answers.
I'd be really curious to see like wildfire mitigation offtake. 'Cause
Mhm.
that's often there's not really killer uses for that in the volumes that you could have. But yeah, just we're just
Wood mulch is probably
yeah,
better than
sure.
biochar.
And I would be curious, like the overall greenhouse gas emissions from biochar processing when it's done right. Versus like a wildfire or versus using it for other, I just would be, I'd be curious. But I've seen the soil benefits firsthand, right, for the water retention, and the nutrient density, but it's not necessarily our issue up here. So things to think about.
Okay.
Do we have a like explicit takeaway from that? Is it folks who are interested?
Healthy
reach out?
skepticism.
Do we want to have a bigger conversation about it? Like I could find out more from Boulder County.
I think it'd be worth asking Boulder County, like they just launched their urban planning tool from their nature-based solutions cohort.
Okay.
I'd hop on a call with them and like, it would be interesting to educate myself around like, what are the claims, and then B, what's the niche where this makes a ton of sense,
Yeah.
and
Where does it not?
yeah.
Yeah. I also have a friend from grad school that, did you ever know Matthew Eshed? He
I
was
don't
the
think so.
biochar guy.
Okay.
And he's really found his niche in that space. So he might be able to come talk to us as well, just for a different perspective. Interesting.
How do you spell his last name?
ESHED. He'd be virtual. He can't
Okay.
come in person. He's on the East Coast.
So I guess, again, do we want to have this conversation at one of the next SAB meetings after we maybe talk with the expert, Boulder County, do some of our own research?
On biogas, biochar.
Yes. Yeah, if that's something that like well, I guess as Erica pointed out, if it's something we would support in terms of the biochar and then biogas as well, and then also if it's something we'd want to pursue.
One other piece on the biogas, heating and cooling is one thing I don't know anything about that. But at the Drive Clean Colorado Summit a few months ago, Longmont was there, and they have a biogas to vehicle fuel
Mhm.
system, and it is a cash cow, or will be soon.
Yeah, Grand Junction has the compressed natural gas that they create from their wastewater treatment plant, and like it's a huge thing, and they sell it and they use it for their own vehicles too.
Yeah.
I'd be open to learning more. But in as far as regards to a grant application for this year, I'd be hesitant to say that we could come up with something project wise for that. So
Yeah.
I'd still want to talk about what our other uses for that funding that's
Mhm.
available. I do like the compost bins to residents. I know we've talked about it before. I can't find when, but I'm thinking around 2022.
Mhm.
And there was a reason that Garrett felt it wasn't gonna be a competitive grant. But I couldn't speak to you what that reason was.
Okay.
But I think if we do consider that, it might need to be paired with like a series of educational classes on compost or something else to kind of beef up more than just, a giveaway of free things. But
Yeah.
really fulfill the reason that the funding is there, which is to incentivize more people to.
And I think with our composting unit coming online soon, like that will be a good reasoning, like
Catalyst.
exactly.
So here's another idea.
Mm-hmm.
What about putting in a grant proposal for some compost bins and for some education from EcoCycle to pair with it? Since they have all their environmental education programs,
Mm-hmm.
you can just put a certain amount towards it, and then they'll just come up and do classes on compost, waste, water,
Yeah.
renewable energy. Like they have all their stock programming.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that might be more competitive.
Yeah.
It could be.
But I know they're already doing a lot of stuff in the net schools.
Mhm.
I don't know what they've already done.
I don't either.
You can definitely explore that though.
Okay. Anything anyone else wants to mention on zero waste?
And adjacent thing to the approval of minutes, for the minutes in good condition, and if not, can we establish a sequence to make sure you get minutes ready for approval in the packet? Because I have failed to go through and clean them up twice.
Yes,
I read them. Like
you can
thought it was
either
good.
email them to me, or if they're in the draft minutes folder, like it was
Yeah.
the last couple times, then I can find it there. So I just linked it and I didn't see any issues with it.
Okay,
And nobody brought anything up and we approved them, so they should be good to go as is for last month.
I will keep operating by the same procedure, and they'll just be there.
Perfect.
Um,
Helped me out because there was something I was trying to remember and then it was in the minutes.
Mhm. Okay. So we will move on to Energy Subcommittee, which Cass put together a little aim with some background information on that.
Yeah, was everyone able to review that? I mean, a few of you, I'm sure a lot of it will be, like information that's you already know, but like for the sake of, having, a new member and also just making sure that I myself understand the history, I wrote this up, with some links and then kind of one of the bigger things was just the definition of additionality here. That, there's in my research, there's really not a agreed upon definition for additionality in terms of like, I didn't find one that like the EPA or the DOE or anything has put out. But generally, I thought the one listed here, additionality is a term that the clean energy industry has borrowed from the world of carbon offsets. It means that a specific renewable energy project and its generation would not exist if not for specific actions taken, like signing a power purchase agreement or subscribing to a community solar garden. So it's not like so much a definition as just kind of what it is, and what it can entail. And then we were talking about, sorry, did you want to say something?
No,
Okay.
it's a great definition. Often it also implies either new or like similar to that, like something that wouldn't pencil without action by some party. That's like impact investors often talk that way.
Totally. And then just so that everyone kind of is aware of rec ownership, for, the different programs that, our residents are, I guess, involved in, that we include on the spreadsheet as well. I have just a table there showing, who owns those recs and why we count them the way that we do, currently. The spreadsheet is also linked there. And that I believe should be fully updated as well. The main thing that we wanted to talk about, is in this like request for direction section. So, we want to bring, something to the BOT for discussion, that is basically addressing the 100% renewable energy goal that they had set back in 2017. And so we need, since we're very dependent on Xcel Energy's renewable energy mix, we need to decide how we want to address this goal, and also the way that we account for renewable energy. So kind of bolded there, it says, should SAB keep tracking renewable energy supply the same way, or should SAB change their accounting method? And something else that we also want to talk about, and this might be, something if you want to do a work session, or if we think it's simpler than that and we can come up with, a way that we want to word a new goal or the same goal but differently, then we can kind of get moving on next steps for trying to just increase our renewable energy in general. But we want to be able to bring something to the BOT that's like a solid SAB recommendation, for kind of next steps here.
Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah.
Good outline of where things sit.
Thanks.
I think that because of the solar rewards program and Pivot Energy having RECs owned by Xcel, it's and that has been somewhat of the core focus in the last couple years. that it would be difficult to go forward with a goal that required 100% renewable energy and not clean energy,
Mhm.
which the definition, the difference in the definition was stated here, where clean energy doesn't have the same requirements of rec retention.
Mhm.
So I think one of our bullet points should be that we say 100% clean energy, not necessarily 100% renewable energy. And as much as I hate kicking the can, I think changing 2025 to like 2030 is.
Which was the original SAB
Mm-hmm.
recommendation.
That's what we brought to the Board of
Right.
Trustees.
In
That's true.
2017.
Because that's
Thank you,
what,
Chris
that's what Sierra Club was recommending. That's what Climate Reality was recommending. That was the campaign. That's what we were signing on to. So we can direct it right at Chris Larson.
Um,
I have a clarifying question. So on the spreadsheet, 2023 through 2025, the baseline renewable electricity from Excel is the same. So have they not added any more new renewables to the grid since 2023?
So we have not gotten the the data for 2024 yet. So
Okay.
basically what is listed here is copied over just to show like status quo, say, you know, but we should be getting that 24 data soon.
the move from 100% renewable energy to clean energy is just to dodge. There's a way for accounting for clean energy, and we get to make up whatever we want for renewable or for clean. Sorry, there's RECs are the way you account for renewable energy. We get to make up whatever kind of, there's not a standard definition for clean energy. Is that
So it's, the document here, the aim outlines that the claim of renewable energy requires rec retention,
right?
but clean energy does not.
And that's something Pi confirmed with us.
Yeah.
I think my only hesitation to that is like clean coal, right? And so I think we want to be clear if we do decide to use
Sure.
clean
We should
energy,
define it.
that we
whatever.
define it, what that means to us, yeah.
Clean natural gas.
I guess I kind of come down on the like, I'm against that shift because like there's not a good way to prescribe ownership or where the clean energy is coming from, right? Like I'm actually a fan, like RECs serve a purpose and it's for accounting for like the goal that we set up. So I'm not a,
I
yeah,
appreciate that, but at the same time, in most like community solar arrangements where you're doing virtual net metering, the community solar project retains the RECs. And they just virtual net meter your bill. So it would remove the ability of Netherland residents, say if they have an east-west facing roof that's really shaded and steep, to join a community solar project down you know, wherever, Longmont or something.
that exists
Or if
currently.
financially they can't afford solar, but they could sign up for the low-income solar garden through Boulder County.
I guess the kicker for me is like, there is someone else who's buying that goodwill
Yeah.
on the market. And so like the person who is signing up for solar through a community garden where the community garden is selling off the RECs to another provider is not actually getting solar energy. They're getting whatever the grid mix is. at a
They're
cheaper
getting
price.
In this
Excel
particular
grid.
case, it's Excel.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your point in that if we're taking the Excel mix and then adding on to that, anybody who subscribed to solar rewards, that's double counting.
Right.
The
So I
other
think,
piece of this is 95% of the rooftop solar arrays in town are also going to sell those RECs to make that solar array financially be feasible.
Yeah, actually don't know what the rate of,
It's huge.
it's large, that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
I've never done a project that didn't sell its Rex.
Well, and
I
it-
guess the other way I would look at it is like Rex that are originated in Netherland or owned by Netherland residents.
I mean, with this, the footprint of the town, I don't think can self-sustain on the basis of renewable energy, just on like the consumption versus the amount of sunlight or, you know, any other renewable resource that passes through that footprint.
I mean, our gap is like a 30-acre community solar project. Or at least it was in 2023.
Yeah, I spent hundreds of hours trying to find that project.
Yeah.
In 2013, there was a project that was bid to Excel.
Yeah.
It was 3 separate parcels. There was one on like south of town, one close to town, I think town shop maybe, and then one off Ridge. And it wasn't financially competitive to win the bid. And that's where the Lafayette Solar Garden won.
That's quite interesting. Also, that was in 2013,
Yeah.
which we're in a like
We're in 140
So, yeah.
scenario. right now. There's no solar happening.
That's
No,
true.
no.
we were in pretty deep discussions with, I think it must have been one of the solar garden subscriptions that we used, and they shared with us that they have been trying to apply for more and more solar gardens. They have the capacity and the ability to serve Excel more. And they run into a limitation with Excel approves a certain amount of projects. And Excel only approves projects where Excel keeps the racks, because that's part of their mandate from the PUC to improve their own emissions. So that, it's like, it puts this catch-22 where if we want to support new solar going online, in at least 50%, if not more of the cases, Excel is gonna own those recs, and there's not really a way for us to.
And that's, I think, where the definition of additionality here is helpful.
Yeah.
In that, you know, it may be that the interconnection queue requires Excel retention of recs in a lot of cases. But, you know, a certain project might not happen. If there wasn't backing, by, for example, the town of Netherland or some other group of private entities.
Just to say out loud too, this was many, many years ago, but another person on the board and I had a meeting with the developers for Bobcat Ridge.
Yeah.
The Arapahoe Ranch property. And they were interested in putting a large solar array on that property and potentially like working with the town to help meet that goal of 100%. It didn't pan out, right? There's a lot of hoops because again, they would have to compete within the Excel market too.
Well, and right now, they're not a part of town of Netherland, and in order to complete their project,
Yeah.
the owners want to be annexed into the town, so they'd have to go through that process first.
Yeah, a couple of steps. Been a lot of interesting conversations.
There's opportunity there.
Yeah, most projects fail. Right, that's the rule.
There also is a gap within the regulatory space of going rogue and developing a solar garden and kind of forcing it in.
Doing the Uber model where you just build it.
It's not a specific name. I've actually had a company reach out to me advocating for this.
Okay.
So obviously we don't want to do, it would just be so much work, right? But
Sorry, rehash what the proposal of that company that reached out to you was.
you can kind of go around the utilities and develop large scale projects, like energy production projects. In this case, they were looking at a large solar array. There's a specific gap within, I think it's federal policy. It's been a while since I've had a conversation about it, but it was new to me and I did some research and this is a large, and they specifically do brownfield development. But I don't think it was connected to that necessarily. It didn't have to be that type of land, but But obviously we're going on the rabbit hole. That's not what we're gonna do in that.
Still grid interconnected, I suppose.
So I guess just to go back to the kind of direction that I'm hoping to get from this meeting, because obviously this is going to be a conversation that just keeps going. I think kind of like the main thing is the way that we're tracking renewable energy. Should we continue to do it the way that we're doing it, where we're tracking RECs and we're, kind of accounting for the renewable energy that our residents are getting specifically through Solar Garden subscriptions and on-site solar rewards, but, taking into account that that's also part of Excel's baseline. And so we're really not double counting it, but we are almost just like keeping track of it, versus, doing some kind of, I don't know, fancy math or not considering like RECs at all, which would be very different. And really like haven't been able to find anything that gives an example of that. So I guess, yeah, the question, and maybe this isn't something we can answer today, but if we do decide to, for now, keep going with the way that we're tracking, then yeah, do we want our goal to include language that basically does not bind us to RECs for our account, well, not for our accounting, but bind us to RECs for like reaching our goal, I guess.
I think there's a lot of information provided in the tracker that we have, and I think it's helpful information. So I'd be a proponent of whether or not we officially count our goal by that tracker, of continuing to have that data.
Definitely.
Yeah, I recommend using the tracker in the way it's being used, the way it's currently calculating, which is basically rec accounting. I am fully on board with taking a look at what is the realistic deadline goal and adjusting that and then figuring out how we get there, or maybe doing the opposite, figuring out how you get to 100% and then what a reasonable timeline for that is.
And you mean in terms of RECs, right?
Yeah, continue account using RECs. I'd be open to making it more challenging and look at adding an additionality on top of that, but not as a substitute.
Okay.
Wait, you're okay, so you're proposing that rec-based goal. So we could theoretically meet it today if we just wrote a check for RECs.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to, like, RECs are, like, I assume that the goal is ongoing, so like, it's $40,000 a year, give or take, at 2023 levels.
So we could just write a check and meet our goal today. So why don't we just pivot to a GoFundMe and start funding Netherlands 100% renewable energy goal? It's a good
My
option.
recommendation is that at a minimum.
Or a carbon tax and, $40,000, I mean, that's not that much of a tax burden, right?
Every
Dude,
year.
yeah.
I don't know what the order of magnitude is here. I haven't looked at the town budget a little bit.
We'd have to do home rule though, so we'd have to go for
There you
a
go.
much larger
We
conversation.
don't have to call it a carbon tax.
We definitely don't have the budget right now for any
No.
of that.
Other than
Yeah.
that's-
Yeah.
budget for
That's more than this.
These are facetious
Yeah.
suggestions.
Figure,
Yeah.
I
So-
can just imagine the publicity we would get as a town opposing a carbon tax.
Huh?
Very bad publicity.
All those tourism.
Yeah.
I can see the look in your eyes.
Yeah.
Or we revisit the conversation with Boulder and we say, hey, sell us your energy from Barker, and then boom, we hit our goal.
Which is really an Excel discussion, right?
Well, yeah, and little town, small mountain town that lost their frozen dead guy wants to buy their locally sourced energy from Barker Reservoir, but Big Bad Wolf Excel refuses to sell.
But doesn't Excel buy it all?
So if we
No.
didn't have a currently signed MOU with Excel Energy, I would be 100% on board.
MOU.
Right now, I'm
Which is-
not 80% on board.
The-
Because we do have an official document saying that the town of Netherland and Excel are working together towards 100%.
I don't think it's.
Is that
permanent,
because
it's
of-
binding?
Is that pie related or is that different?
No, it's
Okay.
different.
That's the, what is it? Energy futures? What do we sign?
It
up?
doesn't
it's the
expire?
reason that we're in the PI program, but
Mhm.
it's bigger
Okay.
and separate from the PI.
And to clarify, the hydropower that Boulder produces, they cannot use themselves. They
Yes.
have to sell it to Tri-State
Because they are also in Excel.
because they're also in Excel territory. So it is a gap within the regulatory space. We could have that conversation. We could get Excel to make an exception for little town of Netherland to hit its 100% goal.
I'd be interested in pursuing it.
So who do I need to get
They
in
need
with?
that.
Kind of a
So
big
this,
getaway.
this is an instance where, you know,
That's the
there's,
silver bullet right there.
yeah, so this is an instance where there's no additionality happening.
Yeah, that's
But,
Yep.
but there is, you know, we're greenifying ourselves $2.
Or
And I think we're also pushing for a change in the system of how energy is distributed and regulating, and we're kind of bucking back against that.
so the other piece of this, here's the initial idea. Initial idea, Jack, just to share, and I'll shut up.
Yeah.
Was Boulder sells it to us at wholesale. We take the difference between what we're paying now with Excel and this wholesale cost for our energy that Boulder's willing to give us. We put it into a pot, and as we get enough funds for each individual solar project, we build renewable energy on site in Netherland with those financial savings, and then we have additionality in 10 years.
So I think it's somewhat explicit with that, non-utilities can't sell energy. So there may be some technical difficulties there.
So we'd have to, in that case, we'd have to talk Boulder into selling us the hydro plant. And then maybe,
And they
because then
already-
we'd be the utility.
and they stopped with the municipalization conversation a handful of years ago, but
Mhm.
maybe it's a different landscape now.
An alternative route could be a like group together a few communities and work on Excel to let us build a like joint community solar that serves the community somewhere out on the plains.
Yeah.
You don't
This-
think they'll do that?
I've
Or-
had conversations. They can't make exceptions. There's so many communities that want what we want.
Yeah.
They would be in a lot of hot water, like Denver, right?
That's true.
All of our neighboring communities in Boulder County have similar goals.
Huh. I mean, it sounds like a much less spicy conversation than San Francisco trying to municipalize against PG&E. But PG&E was also bankrupt at the time, so like, yeah, I get it.
Does
Erica, I like your idea of like the way around. There are ways around this, and given some of the goals, like obviously Netherlands renewable energy goals plus the state of Colorado goals, I think there's a way to work around Excel Energy because they are the problem. And they've been the problem for years about, you know, helping Netherlands to facilitate us reaching our renewable energy goals. So I have some ideas that I can talk with some folks offline. I don't want this to be part of a public meeting.
That's probably smart, Patricia.
Can I ask if you know if the Public Utilities Commission has any like hand in this with Barker Reservoir or?
It hasn't gone anywhere. It's
Okay.
again, like Rab and Melody and Jack are saying, like, it doesn't fit the landscape currently. Like, we'd have to have larger policies and it would set
Mm.
precedent.
It's that the yes, the PUC does technically manage it. But this was decided long ago
Right.
of
before-
which power company gets what territory.
Right. Okay.
And that's where we're stuck in Excel territory,
Right.
which means Excel holds a lot of those cards as deemed by the PUC.
And with the Boulder municipalization conversation, I remember vividly someone from 350.org saying that Boulder could be 70% renewable energy source in 2 years once they owned that
They
ability.
municipalized, yeah.
So we're really paying off Excel stranded assets.
Mhm.
which they're a business, right?
Yep.
But that is the challenge, as Patricia said.
Mhm.
They're the barrier for us in Netherland to reach the 100% goal.
Flip side, if we push the goal back far enough, they are the enabler.
Totally. Per state legislation.
2050, is that what their goal
They're
is?
gonna be, yeah, 100%, but 80% by 2030.
Okay.
And a lot of the big energy providers, even United Power has adopted it on that, even though they didn't have to.
And I think we have to be net clean, net renewable by this time, right? Because we can't, because we're still grid connected if Excel's not 100%, then we can't do it. So that, getting back to the meat and potatoes, that should be one of the other bullet points, is net. clean
Yeah.
Or net renewable.
I feel really strongly that we can't have a rec tide goal because I don't feel like it's equitable.
Can you explain why it's not equitable? Like, what's the,
Because of the community solar garden piece, like Grab talked about. So if you don't have the funds to retain your recs for your rooftop solar array, then you're not contributing to this goal, right?
Right.
With the rec retention. And then if you don't have the ability to do on-site renewable or to pay in a rec program, which I don't even know if Excel has any rec-based programs available. They used to have WindSource. I think the
they do,
Renewable
they have
Connect.
3. Well,
They.
we're still getting numbers from WindSource, so people are subscribed to it still.
So there's a new renewable connect
Yeah.
that they launched. That's a premium.
That would be your
Premium.
option. And then, like, I guess I don't, like, is the equity issue, like, not paying a green premium and therefore not getting, like, you still can get low cost energy through a community solar garden. You just are not you would not be contributing to the way that town benefits. Is that kind of the goal, is like ability to participate in meeting the goal, or is the issue like getting low cost energy in terms of equity?
I think it's both. I think ultimately the biggest challenge with it is that you're not going to be able to support Netherland in reaching its goals unless you have money to do so, in addition to what you pay currently. And that really is upsetting to me. I think there are options that have come across the table over the last few years, like the first Renewable Connect tranche, which was incredibly successful in Netherland. It was the same cost for a 10-year subscription. So that's a different conversation, right? And that did come with the recs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Nixel's not gonna offer that again. No way.
Nope.
I guess I support equity. I support low cost energy. I think renewable energy should be cheaper than like standard grid mix. I don't think I would personally get on board with like compromising accounting to allow like to increase participation. Like, I think there's.
But you are signed up for virtual net metering as long as there's rec retention.
Yeah, that's great. Love that. Cause I just like you. Yeah, I think the attribute needs to stay with the town. Otherwise, like, I don't really understand what you're counting.
So it's the different, it's, what this AIM outlines in the definition of additionality. If somebody does a PPA on the rooftop, that company retains the recs. But if they didn't sign the PPA agreement, then that wouldn't have gone on. And that home's actually consuming those electrons versus, somewhere in Erie,
Yep.
a ground mounted project
So
is.
there's all that loft.
it's
you're not
put
gonna
in.
suffer.
Netherland is not actually ever gonna see any of those electrons, but does retain the recs.
Mhm.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
scenarios in both cases where I think the true goal is either met or not met, regardless of the accounting method.
Okay.
Like, so Busey Brews that just redid their deck and they have that really nice solar array in the back. They sell that solar back to the grid. Because if they didn't, that project would, like Erica was saying, would not have been financially feasible for the business to embark on. And so even though they don't own the racks, they did add to direct solar going directly to their building to the grid. So that meets the additionality, but it doesn't meet the rack direction.
I just struggle with the fact that like if we went with racks, we could buy them today and say we're 100%.
Or you could say we
Yeah.
don't do that. Which is great, right? Like that's a step above the baseline of making sure that the renewable attributes are accounted for,
Yeah.
which I'm like all for those kinds of challenges. Right? I like the hard problems. But yeah, that's like a step above, right? It's like,
I think, coming back to this accounting, the Madeline progress tracking spreadsheet potentially has an issue if we're double counting, baseline Excel grid, component of renewables and also these, Excel retained rec.
I think we fixed.
Yeah, so that was my concern too, and if you look at the formulas, it actually shows we are taking the on-site solar and solar garden kilowatt hours, subtracting them from the baseline, and then summing all of that, and so in total, it's as if you just didn't have the on-site solar garden kilowatt hours. We're just, we're basically subtracting them from one area, adding them back the other. So it doesn't change the math at all, but it's like, in terms of additionality, it's like representing that.
The Netherlands specific.
Then, yeah. So it's not accounting for any additional kilowatt hours. Like it's not double counting them in both.
Yeah. And so I believe it was 2021. Well, maybe it was before that. I think maybe it was 2021 that we did the rebate for rooftop solar. And there is a significant increase every year, you know, in that on-site solar. And so, I mean, I guess not from 2018 to 2019, but that might be a.
Are you talking about through the Boulder County matching grant? I think it's 2019.
Okay. You know, and so those people are selling the solar back to the grid, but again, they never would have embarked on that solar project had we not put forth the effort, done the $1,000 rebate, partner with the county for the additional rebate to get those people solar projects online.
just, I think, just to be clear, I'm not anti-net metering.
Yeah,
I'm pro
yeah.
net metering.
Yeah,
I'm anti counting.
you would just like us
solar
to
solar.
buy the recs to offset whatever those recs we don't own are.
No.
No?
I think he's after additionality with rec retention.
Well, it's both.
At minimum rec retention, preferably additionality. Is my
Well,
position.
Yeah,
There's-
and so then in a case where,
There's no rec retention, that doesn't include additionality. We're not buying recs.
There are a lot of negatives in there. There's no.
There's no additionality, or there's no rec retention without additionality. So you have to add something to the grid and retain the recs in order to simply not be buying recs.
Yes, that would be the ideal.
So
yeah, and I think I disagree with that. And you do as well. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's equitable, and it's conversation we've had from the beginning.
Mhm.
So, the other thing is maybe we just throw out this goal in general and we just go for electrification. Because that is going to help us as far as reducing our greenhouse gas emissions more than anything. Because that's going to transition our natural gas and propane appliances to electric. And that's what other communities are doing. That's what Broomfield said years ago. Like when Garrett left Netherland and went to Broomfield, they were looking at just electrification because Excel is going to be 80% by 2030. So the more that we can harness that 80% renewable energy source electricity with moving all of our heating and cooling to electric, the better we're all gonna be.
But how would we do that? Because if you think about a town like Netherland, all the houses that we have are built, right? I mean, the new development is gonna be very small. I mean, if
Yeah.
there's this annexation, it's not like we're like Commerce City where you have these massive fields of new houses and they can dictate what type of appliances or whatever are gonna go in these new houses. Like if the town came to me and said, we want you to tear out your boiler and do something electric, I would respond to that with one finger. Right? I would say to the
Well,
town,
I think it's a carrot problem, not a stick problem.
Yeah.
Not a stick.
Berkeley's natural gas ban was not popular.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, the California Restaurant Association was also, they were, yeah, and similar with Denver.
my point is, I just don't see how in the foreseeable future, the town could accomplish getting people to get rid of natural gas appliances and heat and propane and all of that.
I think you'd look at encouraging replacement with electric. Is the way folks tend to do that. So it's like you look at retirement age. So for
Yeah.
most of our infrastructure, we're looking at minimum, well, it's not somewhere between 1 and 20 years, and every time you miss one, that pushes the goal out. But like
And
that's reasonable.
And retirement is not appropriate anymore. So replacement, no matter the age, is appropriate. So at least that's what I'm hearing in these conversations. I think for your example, Rich, like, sure, but maybe your hot water goes out, your hot water heater. And so it makes sense for you to get a heat pump hot water heater.
I'd put a gas in. I'm on this board, I believe in sustainability, I'd put a gas in, because it'd be cheaper for me.
Yeah.
I have,
that's what I was.
Not to be,
Is-
but electric hot water heaters are cheaper than gas ones.
We're
not
gonna
boiler.
run into the
I have a boiler
same,
system.
Okay, if you have a whole house boiler, it's different.
yeah, we're gonna run into the same equitability issue of a lot of these old infrastructure houses. All of the infrastructure is gonna be redone, not just one appliance replaced, and that's gonna run into the same equitability issue that we're running in now.
There's actually an even worse equity issue, which is stranding folks who can't or
Backup
don't want to
power, who
make.
don't have backup
No, well,
power.
sure, that as well, but like, and I don't think this came through as clearly as I would have wished in the natural gas statement that I shared, but like, you are stranding the folks who can't make the upgrades or don't make the upgrades on the natural gas system. And as that all becomes a stranded asset and
Their
utilities
prices
tend to be
go up.
looking to recover that. So this is like, was like part of the major pushback against the bans in Berkeley was like thinking about
It was
that
the
end game.
California Restaurant Association.
There were lots of folks pushing.
They
that.
were the primary in the lawsuit.
That's great.
Yeah, but it was primarily for cooking, right? But I'm on board with the carrot, right? Like, it doesn't make sense to mandate anything. We will be there sometime soon, but that is not Netherlands Place.
Yeah.
So, but I'd love to tell you guys about the Marshall Fire numbers that I heard from Boulder County, because 70% of people that rebuilt for the Marshall Fire have built to 2021 IECC or beyond for code, which is huge. Like, they've seen in like Sonoma, after the fires, they saw like 6% adoption for building to, those requirements. And especially when they made exceptions, which they did in the Marshall Fire case, because Louisville had just adopted the 2021 International Energy Code.
Yeah.
The other piece is, have we advertised as a town for any of the Excel rebates? Like, they're tripling their rebates right now. And it's a first come, first serve. They expect it to be gone in like 9 to 12 months. And it's huge. Like, I can pull it up and share with you guys, but it took our heat pump rebate and tripled it it's been started since January 1st. And they have it for all of these big ticket items for all electric transfers or transmission
So I have
transitions.
included those in the newsletters in the, yeah. I'm actually the one doing the newsletters now, so I'll make sure that it's in this next one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it might not have been in the last one.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But Boulder County is also offering some significant LMI. So if you're income qualified and you want to transition, there's even more money at the table in addition to Excel. It's huge.
Yep, if you meet the 80% threshold, then they can help you.
And when you think about the
It's
compounding
income
factors,
qualified, 80% of area.
Area meeting.
yeah.
So I just want to point out something in terms of like going 100% electric. personally in my home, I never will do that just based on all of the power outages I experience in the town of Netherland. I'm in Big Springs and I have a wood stove so I can have heat. And I don't know what I would, if my house were 100% electric, I don't like, there would be many times that I couldn't function because of Excel's lack of
But
consistent power. So like I'm like, and I understand, and I'm not like 100% renewable energy either. So I'm just thinking about people who, if they go 100% electric and they're not 100% renewable, there's a lot of people who would be stuck. And because of the way Excel Energy works or doesn't work, I'm not like jumping on the bandwagon to be like, I'm going to go 100% electric in my house.
I feel like if we're talking about goals, the 100% electrification goal is almost a harder goal to achieve than 100% renewable energy. And if we're having this harder to time with 100%
absolutely.
renewable energy, I'm hesitant to push for even more.
I don't disagree, but is it about the goal or is it about the impact? And I think this conversation has started with the impact. How do we have the greatest impact?
It's a bit of a distraction, but if we maintain at the same rate of like owned recs within net, right? So we're looking at green tariff subscriptions, on-site solar, no solar rewards. That's basically where they come from right now. When Excel gets to 80%, we are above 100%.
So we don't have to worry about it?
I mean, by 2030, right? Like, I think if that is like the baseline and we pursue the path that we're on, there's always room for failure. We'll probably see load growth in net as EVs come online. We'll hopefully see a lot of load growth as EVs come online, but
You also see load growth within Excel and renewables don't scale.
renewables don't, that's a statement or,
So
scenario.
if Excel's load growth
yeah,
scales,
data centers and,
yeah.
yeah.
And then the renewable component can't just take on a higher load like a gas turbine or a coal-fired power plant can, then those are gonna fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Excel could miss too.
that's true. Yeah, we expose ourselves to that risk. So there are risks on both sides, but like just putting it in context, like if Excel were at 80% today,
We'd be at our goal.
we'd be, yeah.
Is it realistic that Excel is gonna, it's like, aren't they like 44% right now? Renewable, they're gonna almost double that in 5 years? I think they're higher than that. I just don't see how they could possibly
I heard them say they think they're gonna meet their goals early. Not to say that we can trust what they say, but that's the messaging they're giving, is they're very confident in it, yeah.
They're buying a lot of reps. If that's what.
Hopefully that's contributing to new
Well, they
renewable
explicitly
generation.
buy recs because of
yeah.
the RPS. Which is,
But they can put on Rex online all the time, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what the Solar Connect program was.
yeah,
Or solar reward. What was that? Solar rewards? Solar Connect.
Renewable Connect.
Renewable Connect. Oh my God. But that was them just being like, let's just put a 25 megawatt garden online because we can,
Yep,
right?
yep,
What's wrong with that?
because
There's
then
nothing wrong with that, but they should do more. Is my point. They could do it so easily.
Well, and that's what I believe the new Renewable Connect is. The thing is as a company, Excel said, well, these solar gardens are making money off of building these solar farms for us. Why can't we make the money by building our own solar farm? And so now that's a premium product. And I think that's where before it wasn't, and now it is. And that's where our support of that project now has gone away because it's not equitable to charge more for that solar.
don't get me wrong too, like Excel does a lot of great things. Like the Partners in Energy program is incredible, right? That is such an asset for every community that participates. They're incredible. I think the challenge is that they could change. They could bring us all the solutions tomorrow if they wanted to do that. That's the hard part, right? That's why Boulder wanted to municipalize. But
Yeah.
so
So-
there's a lot of utilities that are way, way, way worse as far as renewable energy adoption. Like
Maybe-
Tri-State,
I think
right?
there's only one that actually has more renewable energy as a utility the size of Excel in the country, and that's PG&E.
Mhm,
And a big part of that, well, it depends what you mean by renewable,
mhm,
but they have a lot more hydro.
mhm,
Like you think about hydro in Colorado, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for hydro.
mhm.
And PG&E actually has like 80% carbon free. That's because they have nuclear plants,
Mhm.
and we don't have any nuclear plants here.
Yep.
So
Not yet.
So one thing I heard earlier in the conversation was, I forget who said this, but basically we need to look at, when we might get to 100% based on Excel, and what would that timeline look like? And can we kind of like figure out that future date and then work backwards from there of like what we need to do to contribute? I guess that kind of in my mind made me think like, okay, we need to gather some more data, possibly from Partners in Energy and Excel on like what that actually is looking like. Like Jack, you were mentioning, like we might get to 100% by 2030, but then, Brad brought up the additional loads and that could change things for Excel as well. And so is that something we want to look into more, or do we want to just focus on language of the goal, which could involve changing the year, changing the percentage, or changing our language? Or we just keep what we have? I feel like those are kind of like the three options. So doing some kind of study to figure out when we feasibly can get to 100% in the future with Excel, changing the goal language, year, percentage, or keeping what we have and just trying our best to get to 100% as soon as possible. Unless there's any.
I understand that first option. But I'm kind of against it because it doesn't prioritize that value of what are we doing here? Like, yes, more data about Excel and how close to the grid they're gonna get is helpful information for us to have. But ultimately, I want us to push for as much new renewable energy as we can, not necessarily push to make the math work to get to 100.
Mhm.
So I guess I'd be more open to either changing our language or just letting this goal sunset and not necessarily putting forth a similar goal, but making different kinds of commitments to as much new renewable energy as possible.
I think I'd propose taking Excel at its word and focusing on the remaining 20%, set the deadline for push the deadline back 5 years. And if we wanted to frame it with, when we set this in 2017, like we didn't realize how big of an issue electrification is. We're gonna focus on that as well now. Yeah, I think that would be, I wouldn't recommend a deep study of whether Excel is gonna make it or not. I would prefer to pass that part of the commitment off to their side of the table.
And it's going to be enforced from the state, so,
Yeah.
we don't need to do that.
Right, there's other ones.
Rich, what do you think?
I think that if we're gonna have a goal, just sunset, say we didn't meet it. that is, I don't know, that's really what the board is gonna want us to recommend to them, right? I don't really think that's sort of the way this community really wants these things to happen. But I also don't think we should set goals that are really unrealistic. Right, and without buying RECs, I mean, I was just trying to figure out how much it would cost to make us 100% renewable just by buying RECs. And I don't even really know how that would work, but the numbers I came up with is if we bought them on the open market, maybe we could do it for like $50,000 a year. But that's $50,000 a year, you know, that's $500,000 over 10 years, and it's gonna go up, obviously, right?
Yep.
So,
And different recs have different like quality too,
sure.
so.
so, and, you know, and probably a lot of them are kind of scammy, right? But I don't really see the town coming up with $500,000 over a 10-year period for accounting. I mean, that's just accounting for energy. It's really, the generation capacity is gonna be there either way. It's not like we're gonna make a difference in how many solar fields or windmills or whatever they're gonna build to generate this electricity based on this little town buying some RECs from some people in Connecticut or wherever they're coming from. So I would say, you know, I think we're gonna be in a situation where 80% is 5 years away. And I don't know if that's sort of like, you know, there's that old joke about fusion power, right? Fusion power is 40 years away and always will be, right? So,
Right.
Well, in fairness, I mean, this is a little bit of a different situation than Fusion, right?
Yeah.
Like Excel has explicitly gone from, you know, like 17%, 8 years ago to 43, probably more than 50% today. So progress has been made.
Progress has been made.
Yeah.
Most of this stuff is solar. And the thing about solar is you don't generate it at night. And there's a lot of electricity that is consumed at night. And there's no way we can build battery capacity in 5 years or 10 years to.
Right. And I think that's why we had talked about a net.
Right. Well, you know, the net thing makes sense. I mean, like, I don't consume any electricity based on net. I generate more than I use. I have to figure out ways to use my surplus. But it's still at nighttime, I draw on Excel's grid. I mean, that's just reality. So if it's net, yeah, but there's still got to be a gas power plant or something like that at night, right? There's no other way to do it. So I don't really see in the foreseeable future how it's possible to have 100% in reality. And we can use accounting gimmicks to get to 100%. But unless you can actually say at night, we're relying on renewable energy, we're not really relying on renewable energy.
No, and I'm wondering if it's more helpful, instead of thinking about a scale of 0 to 100, to think of a goal of either an annual or every 5 years of like additional kilowatt hours of renewable energy, either subscribed to or added to the grid, or like some sort of language like that, where we're just talking about this is how much energy we want to support, rather than trying to go for the 100%.
So on your comment of 0 to 100%, based on the math, it's actually possible for it to be over 100%.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And we should maybe have, you know, some clear guidance within our goal. If we exceed 100% net, is that a good thing, or should we be selling RECs at that point? Because, you know, nobody likes to see that we're 150% clean energy. Like that doesn't look good. It doesn't taste good. I think
Didn't expect you to go there.
But if we say we
so-
want to add a
Maybe we wait till that's a
200,000
problem.
kilowatt.
So I think we want to say something along the lines of, you know, is our goal to meet this percentage of cleaner renewable energy by this date? And if we exceed that goal, you know, we should do this with the recs that are made. And then, so maybe there's you know, like a dual pronged approach here where we're seeking, a net clean energy versus a overall clean energy goal. Because, yeah, we don't want to come across as like drinking the Kool-Aid on this.
Well, if we had, look,
Counting.
I have, if you calculate my electricity use at my house, right, I am like 120%, like something like that, generation. Especially like in the warmer months of the year, right? And that doesn't like bother me or anything like that. I don't think it would bother the town if we like had a whole bunch of people generating solar and we generated more than we used. But the problem is we're not going to be in that situation.
No.
Cause we can only reach that 100% accounting for the recs that Excel already owns.
Right, well, Jack was saying that if Excel gets to 80% by 2030, then we're at 100%.
Yeah.
And so if there's any additional projects or subscriptions or anything that adds recs to narrow in the interim, then we will be in excess of 100%.
Mhm. Yeah, and I guess my personal feeling is that the momentum behind the movement that inspired the original goal, the original resolution is really about changing society, right? And changing that grid mix and trying to move towards a different society where more and more renewable energy is put on the grid. So I feel like if we reached 100, I don't
If
care
we-
about selling more RECs because we already
Well,
got
no.
there. I still want to add more solar after that, right?
Sure, if we reached 100%, should Netherlands as a community then focus on power shifting with batteries?
Yeah.
Or should it be focused on more generation?
Mhm.
And then, you know. So it's something that I think should be included in this goal to make it more complicated.
So I never
Yeah.
thought I would say this. I'm gonna say this. I think we should bring to the BOT that we would like to change the timeline to 2030. And I think we should just put this aside and say, cool, check. And I think we should pivot to an electrification goal. And I don't think it should be 100% because I don't think that's appropriate per Rachel's comment. But I think there's a lot of people in the town that could benefit from electrifying. And there's so many other co-benefits because as we get warmer and warmer temperatures up here, nobody has air conditioning, right?
Yeah.
And a heat pump brings that. That's how Longmont is framing their heat pumps, is not heating, it's cooling. So
Yeah.
I've seen, we have relatively low heat stress over the next 20 years in all three like scenarios. I love selling heat pumps based on cooling. I have a heat pump, but I don't know that what applies in Longmont for heat pump sell based on cooling applies here as much.
I don't know about you, my office is in the top of our house and it is too hot for me to like think in the summer. It's not that many days, but if Boulder's gonna go from a dozen days over 90 degrees or 95 degrees to over 3 months,
You
right,
said-
we are going to see that.
That's the other side of it.
Yeah, so, but and especially if we have poor insulation in our homes, I mean, energy efficiency first and foremost, right? Always. There are attic insulation rebates from Energy Smart, but I would love to have your optimism. I'm not experiencing it personally.
There are a ton of
I think, why can't we do both?
Right, totally. We can do
But-
heating too, sure, yeah.
I think these can be separate approaches
Yeah.
and that
Sure.
they can both serve the same net.
Yeah. But are you guys, I mean, are you baking in your homes? Do you work out of your house?
Yeah, like there's some nights that we can't go to sleep unless the fan is going.
Right. And then if there's wildfire smoke too, that's a whole nother piece of it. You know, you can't open all your windows because you're have asthma or, you know, it's just super poor air quality.
I was gonna say, I've always been able to just open windows and it keeps it cool enough with the consistent breeze that goes that way.
Yeah.
But as we're experiencing climate change, that's gonna be less than
Yeah.
the case.
But But I would love to move towards an electrification goal, and I'd love to move like communication, education, and outreach towards that. And harness that 80% as much as we can.
So the only one big thing that makes me hesitant to that is when we're looking at total impact to the grid and to the system, and we're talking about what's the largest like contributor to the problem that doesn't have a solution right now is I feel like our businesses. And I'd really like to focus on a way to help our businesses join in on our goals somehow, because we have Boulder County does a lot of outreach to residents. There's a lot of support there financially to residents. Excel has some of their rebates as well. But our business community has really little access to either renewable energy or having an electrification plan. And I wonder if helping businesses in the business community might bring more impact to us than helping residents.
Just from like a GHG.
Yeah.
Keston, did you meet with
That's
Matt?
like a-
Large scale.
And that's
Yeah,
like a
Patricia.
that's a catch-22 because of the Netherland Downtown Development Association and the interest in businesses who are renting, like investing in doing more for their business. So I don't know what happened. I'm not sure what's going on with like the new, whatever it's called, the new Netherland Downtown Development Association plan. It's very ambitious. And it's most of the buildings are owned by a certain person, and a lot of the buildings are not in great shape. So it's like, I've had this conversation with like board of trustee members and mayors and like trying to figure out what's the best way to approach the businesses and like getting Netherland to that. Like it's a very small percentage left for us to get to our 100% renewable energy goals. And yes, like talking to businesses is like the next step. And it's like a catch-22 of how do we do it? Like, do the businesses upgrade their buildings and invest in being in the town, or do they commit to commit to the renewable energy goal, and that helps them have more of like prominence and place in the town? So I'm not sure. And this conversation's been going on at least for 5 years. So I would love like insight and like some ideas for next steps.
So what about PACE? And because they have a ton of money moving towards electrification of businesses in Boulder
Yeah.
County.
They've talked, haven't they talked to most of the businesses? The only one they can really go to is BNF because they have new owners now.
Yep.
But otherwise Ron owns most of the buildings. And if he decides to move forward with his plan, then there's really not a point of doing that right this second.
Right.
But I know Pace has been working with some of our, the like teens, on their new building coming up and, Wildfare. The sub area plan did get adopted by the PC last night and will be on the May 6th Board of Trustees meeting. But obviously it's just a guideline document of like prioritizing. But yeah, I think a lot of that depends on like conversations have been had, but a lot of the concerns are like if Ron does develop those buildings, it's kind of a waste. But I think the only approachable like business at this point would be BNF's new owners.
And what about the whole BNF Plaza? The Tebow Plaza?
Shopping center, yeah. Well, and beyond, let's say we don't even think about that side of First Street. There's the mining museum that the county runs right in the center. That's a full roof that is potential for solar. There's Kathmandu that has a brand new roof on there.
Yeah.
There's Steve with the African Market Baskets, who's considered solar several times, and I'm sure there's a way to talk him into it. Mountain People's Co-op, there's still plenty of other opportunity there for businesses to add solar. And can we kind of serve in that gap and help them overcome the obstacles that are preventing them from doing that right now? Especially when BNF is like the literal largest user of electricity on Earth.
Yeah, I don't know how far those conversations or what the obstacle was for some of those businesses, or even if like mining was even approached. But we could definitely ask him how far that went. Cause, I don't know what all the obstacles are. I would say from a permitting perspective, it's way easier now because there's a lot of fees not associated with it. And we don't have a lot of restrictions.
And it might just be that the businesses don't have the capacity to dedicate one to search the solar company and find the financing and and so if we could do that for them. Then maybe we can fill that gap. I don't know.
Would SAB do that?
I don't, feels like a tricky space to enter.
Yeah, and that's like.
It is, but
commercial
that's
Solar developer's job.
that's why our businesses have not been receiving help though for the last 5 years, is because there isn't anybody operating in that space.
But like Excel has a list of all their electrification contractors that they will facilitate their rebates through. It's huge. But I would imagine like Boulder County also has a list probably for solar installers.
Mhm.
I could always get help with that. And then Matt Hannon is just so great. But I know Wildfire is gonna see, I think we just heard on Saturday, 20,000 for their solar array
Yeah.
from Pace,
Mhm.
plus whatever else they're gonna get. So
And I know that's what Busey did too. They took advantage of that to get their
Yeah.
solar.
So this is a very productive conversation, but it's maybe not moving us because we're going down like. We're in the weeds with individual properties,
Yeah.
which I snipe myself doing all the time. But Cassidy needs something to put in her aim.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
not hearing a clear consensus around where we go with this.
It's sounded, there's at least echoes of a consensus on keep as is, move, date out. And like focus on additional things, which is kind of what we've been discussing.
Oh, so
Well, so
changing the
there's
year.
a discussion of pushing the goal out to 2030, but that still doesn't address the issue with using 100% renewable energy.
What do you mean? Like,
Because the issue is we can't claim 100% renewable energy when we're using 44% of that 100% as RECs that are owned by Excel.
like 10,000.
So
No,
legally, we cannot claim to be 100% if we don't own enough RECs to cover that 100%, which is why there's legal issues with the 100% language,
10%.
right? That's
Yeah.
the way it is.
um,
How did you understand that then?
I guess I'm a little confused. Because what I'm hearing is that if Excel gets to 80% renewable energy by 2030, then we'll be over 100%. Is that what someone was saying?
Quite correct. We'll need to step up 5% depending on load.
Okay.
Like we're at 16%.
So if
That's realistic.
if we set our
Yeah, exactly.
year, if
Like,
we set our goal to be 2030, 100%, then that seems attainable with some extra work.
With the spreadsheet.
Yes.
Assuming that
But-
Excel plays their part.
I guess we need to clarify this with Becca, because I understood the whole problem with our 100% is that by using the spreadsheet, we are claiming and using the spreadsheet to count to 100, we are claiming the RECs that Excel owns, and we can't do that.
I don't
No.
think anybody has suggested we can't count
Right.
Excel's, including PIE, was recommending that we use Excel as a baseline. There are other towns that are just using Excel. Like
I-
they're setting their goal with when Excel says they're going to.
I think because Netherland is supplied by Excel and their renewable energy is going into the grid, then we can count the percentage that our town uses of like our consumption. And so there's no issue with saying they're 44% of our consumption is, Excel owned RECs, but that still means we're renewable for like that 43%.
Can I ask a really obnoxious question?
Yeah.
What happens if we buy Eldora? Will it be annexed into the town? I mean, I know it has to be adjacent property,
So
but
That'll be a
don't
long
know.
time before that even happens, if it happens.
the
How
annexation.
much
And
price
I've,
will-
and I've tried to broach that topic, and
Yeah.
from what I understand, it's not clear that we are gonna annex Eldora, even if we buy it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
if that would
It
just
would
throw our
remain-
goals out the window.
It would remain.
Yeah. They have
Correct.
solar on some
Correct.
buildings,
It's-
but
it's-
no, you're right,
it's-
you're right. It would.
Yeah, there's
there's
no
no
clear
making-
direction.
Yeah.
If it would happen, like Melody was saying, so, and even if it did, it'd be a very long time before that, but
We could
It's
also
not
say
clear
not
on
including this
if
ski
that's the
resort.
case.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't even think about it.
Including the ski resort if purchased.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
So,
think 2030 makes sense.
Mm,
I think it makes sense. I'm like seeing, we have general consensus. I think the definition could use some more discussion.
and just for people online, anyone have thoughts who hasn't spoken out yet about this, change to 2030 as our 100% renewable energy goal?
Sorry, renewable energy or clean energy?
I think we're
we
still
gotta get-
saying
See,
renewable
that's
energy,
what I'm
but
saying.
I
That, I
think,
think that's a big factor. I could have understood Becca totally wrong, but that's what I understood.
I think that's pretty reasonable to say. I think 2025 is pushing it. So,
well, yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, obviously, I think, yes, I think that will go over well with the BOT. I would highly suggest saying that. So
Okay, thanks, Ty.
That's my opinion.
Great. Thanks, Ty.
Yo.
So attached to this 100% goal, should there be a consequence for not meeting it, or is it just one of these other goals that's just aspiration? And
We would give ourselves a consequence for not.
well, the consequence would be like, we have to buy the reps to fill up the 100%.
I feel like
BOT
the
is
BOT would
gonna
not go for
agree.
it.
We can propose it to them, but they're not gonna go for that. So
Yeah,
I
but-
think it would be more fruitful to have a discussion that is something they would bite.
I have some ideas now.
The school that had the biomass plant had to buy carbon credits to meet their carbon neutrality goal. And they like put that into their commitment. If we don't make it, then we're buying them outright.
There you
And that was the early days for carbon credits,
go.
forest credits. were-
I wouldn't fight it, but I wouldn't vote for it. Just circling back. If there does end up being an issue with saying 100% renewable in 2030, even if Excel is at 80 by then, if that is still an issue, how do people feel about using clean energy instead of renewable energy?
I think if we push it to 2030, we can do renewable energy, right? Like we commit to
That's what
it.
I'm not clear on, though. I don't think that was the conversation that Becca was having with us.
Well, we
Becca,
should set a
yeah,
baseline.
At the one where she was at the SAB meeting and talking to us.
No,
So
that was the conversation she was having.
I will clarify, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, that she was saying that we would be fine, like we can count those recs
If it's rec based.
because it's Excel supplying our power. And so we don't have a utility, right? So we aren't going to be able to like own any recs because we're not generating any power from what I understand. That's how recs work, like.
Yeah, like I said, I just understood that totally differently. Like,
Okay.
I thought the whole reason we had to reword the goal is because even if we met the goal in 2025, it was gonna be a legal challenge that Excel was gonna be upset with us over because they own 44% of that 100%.
I'll
It's only
clarify,
for
but
us to do our part.
I think it was the additionality that she was concerned about.
Yeah.
In case we accounted for the kilowatt hours in a different way than is standard through recs.
So what if we do like a whole, first priority is, full rec offset for Netherlands existing energy consumption for their electric grid?
25 consumption.
No, see, I'm wondering if like we do like first goal is 2030, right? Like our full electricity demand in 2030 is offset renewable energy credit. Second priority would be with a baseline of 2020 or something. Like, you know, like we could get strategic and then we could set these priorities. Like, this is what we're going to try for. If we don't make this, we're gonna be happy with this. If we don't make this, we're gonna be happy with this. And we do some type of, I don't know, just catch all. So we don't get in the same situation we are now.
I think conceptually you're saying set like consolation prizes.
Yes.
Okay. Understand that concept. Don't understand the examples. But
Well, like, for example, if what I've seen is we're expecting a 30% increase in electricity demand with the electrification of built environment and transportation. So let's take growth plus 30% just transition to electrification. That's not gonna be realistic for us to achieve in 2030, right? So maybe we do a baseline of 2025, maybe do a baseline of 2023, because we know what Excel's percentages for 2023.
so it's a good point. In the master's paper that was the action plan, they said 2017
Baseline,
for the baseline.
yeah.
I mean, you set the base, keep the baseline at 2017 and set the stretch goal for
Stretch goals, yeah.
2030.
Okay, that's
Right?
better.
Like, we're gonna actually offset all of our renewable energy, not just whatever we're consuming in 2017. I personally think yes, it is harder and it's less predictable, but like should try and offset the
Wait, sorry,
ramp up to current consumption.
I missed something. You said you think we should change it so that we're offsetting how much we were consuming in 2017.
The master's paper talks, and this is not the way it's done in the spreadsheet, but the master's paper talks about 100% renewable based on 2017.
Because we were consuming more in we were consuming like 12,000 kilowatt hours versus now we're consuming 10,797. So I don't think that to me makes sense to go off of,
What
Well,
would that be?
because
That-
we have better energy efficiency, I think.
That much? That's huge.
Yeah.
um,
There's been some significant
Or not thousand,
upgrades, so like, the co-op upgraded their refrigeration unit. I know if you look at the Excel rebate stuff, there's been a lot of people, using those appliance rebates to help with
Mm-hmm.
more efficient appliances. I can't say that, I mean, I think that's a curious number, but there is a lot of, that we've done as far as efficiency goes.
Is there any mining operations happening? Was there any industry happening a few years ago that might be no longer?
Yeah, the grow house.
Is there a grow house? That would be, I mean.
Yeah,
that's
behind
huge.
BNF.
Okay, that's huge.
Yeah, and they're no longer there. They
Cool.
moved a couple years ago, 2021, 2022,
That would make sense.
because that's right when it falls to below 11.
That's interesting though, because I wonder if they were a huge user, would they have been waived from being included? Also, remember that,
Total, not in
No.
the total.
not in the total?
They
Okay.
wouldn't be included if there's, it
Cause
has to be, if there's one outlier, then they have to mix it into the data. They can't.
I see what you mean, but I
Right.
think they did tell us an updated number for the total consumption because they were leaving out one large user and they got a waiver, so they gave me new data. They were like leaving it out of the total, which is weird, but
what was for the privacy thing?
no, I know a privacy thing, but like if it's just like in the total annual consumption and it's not like divvied out of like how much is using, who is using what, then
I think the
Oh.
I
waivers.
don't know though, did the new one go, isn't there a new one that went online by like
Big
the,
Row
yeah,
by Stinky Gulch.
yeah.
Yeah. It was 2 years ago.
And that's a pretty comparable sized building.
Yeah,
To
it's
what was
big.
over there.
Yeah.
So maybe that is a change. Maybe that didn't.
30% load growth would put us back in the 2017 range.
Of 12.2 or whatever.
I mean, give or take.
Yeah.
What's a million or two between friends?
Well, and that's what I was kind of pulling out was like just from the Netherlands specific projects, we've got like 1.7 million kilowatt hours. And I would be supportive of moving towards a goal of, I took it out of there. I just summed the column. I would be supportive of moving towards a goal of like, we want to subscribe to or generate 4 million kilowatt hours of
That makes-
renewable energy by 2030
Like, yeah.
or something like that, rather than trying to get around this whole. I don't know. I just feel like we get so in the weeds with focusing on the number and getting the 100 that we kind of lose sight of the goal of just supporting renewable energy.
Mm-hmm.
Totally an impact.
But I think that like you made a really good point earlier, like it's about the impact. It's not about like actually reaching it.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's the same idea with zero waste. You're never going to truly hit zero waste, or not, I won't say never, but it's very, very unlikely you're going to hit zero waste. That doesn't mean you shouldn't strive for it still.
Why don't we do a baseline of 2025? We don't yet know what our energy consumption will be for 2025. You know, and then we change the date to 2030, and we can do a little bit of work and outreach and engagement, right? We wouldn't stop that because it's the right thing to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And I really think we should move towards like a full town beneficial electrification goal. And
I think
do the
that's-
energy, do the outreach and the engagement around it, right?
I think of that as a like separate and like.
Yeah.
I think
this
so.
is the update on 100% renewable energy. And we think this would be something that we should look into. Let's define it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we can have those really fun conversations of
Yeah.
defining
Yeah.
beneficial.
Process clarification on that. We would be presenting to the DOT, this is our recommendation for a new 100% goal by 2030. But in the work session, we could talk about, okay, we want to go for an electrification. How does the DOT support that goal? Where do we go from here?
Do we need to ask them? I mean, that's like our wheelhouse. And I think I would like to bring the conversations together, like separate initiatives, but bring them at the same time. Like, yes, this may seem like a defeat and a failure because we are stretching this out 5 additional years. And we want you to know that our goal is still on impact. That is still our focus area. And with that in mind, we'd like to transition towards like still working on this 100%. Yes, it's going to be less of a lift by 2030, but we'd like to move into this space that is going to be difficult. And that's going to be supporting our residents towards electrification of their built environment and transportation.
Yeah, and I have I'm hearing in my head, like, and you guys came to us with this goal in 2017. Where we're still gonna have a hard time meeting it, you know, even by 2030, maybe it's less challenging than 2025, but it's still gonna be difficult. And why is this electrification goal any different than that?
And then we can
You
call
know,
Billy into the
is it gonna be
conversation.
another unsuccessful goal?
I guess. Yes, to bringing them together. I would not try to define what beneficial electrification, what that looks like in that pairing. To your end, like, what is the narrative that comes with this around why we aren't at 100% right now? And
And we're pushing for another goal.
yeah, I mean,
Like it's valid, but what I feel like there does need to be some reasoning there. So I would not be in support of bringing them together right now. But y'all can outvote me. I mean, go around.
Should we
the
do
room,
a vote?
everybody say something.
We could.
I just,
I also just feel like the electricity goal is just kind of not as relevant as it was in 2017. So I almost want to bring that to the conversation with the BOT of like, we already know Excel's going to do the bulk of this work for us. We didn't know that in 2017,
True.
what
you know?
haven't been connected to the Colorado energy landscape that long. What happened in those those 7 years, especially the early ones, in terms of like, yes, looking at, like, it sounds like the first like renewable energy, like residential purchase program came into effect. They started doing solar gardens. There are more solar, like last year, there was more regulation that came through that made billing for solar gardens easier. Like the landscape has matured and it like you could say there's an argument to say like as you were just saying, like the impetus for this has moved out of the community's hands, predominantly out of the community's hands into the state level. It's like it's like the counterculture won because there's yogurt in every grocery store.
Right.
Can I,
Organic Cheerios.
And Stonyfield Organic is the, you know, in Walmarts everywhere, right?
Yeah.
can I suggest, because Partners in Energy offered to help us with like a workshop, and as Melody and I discussed earlier, we think their efforts would be best spent trying to figure out how we reach 100% or how we do these things rather than, you know, what our goal should be. We could, you know, take them up on that offer and do that work session around kind of like quick energy action planning, and including talking about beneficial electrification. And then we can bring, you know, what comes out of that work session to the BOT, either whether we decide we want to do it together or separately. Just because I feel like right now there's a lot of really good information flowing, but we might need to like sit on this conversation and not necessarily decide exactly what we want to do tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would say we want them to help with us with the 2030 goal. Is that what we're saying?
I
Yeah,
would just suggest that Jack does it. I would just suggest that you put it together and you look at like what the gap is and some potential solutions. I think that's worth it. I don't think putting pie on it is worth it. I think putting pie on a beneficial electrification plan is worth it. And running the numbers to see what it's going to look like for just natural adoption, what they're seeing in the market. I mean, I just saw a pie slide. I don't know if you were part of that one, Cass, but there's huge heat pump adoption happening. Huge. They're selling like hotcakes. And so what is the natural progression going to be in the town of Netherland for this adoption? And then what's the additionality that we're going to need to focus on to support adoption? And what's a realistic goal? Is it 60%? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Just by like the carrot, right? Not the stick.
Yeah.
I think that's the work and that's the impact. It's not the 100% goal anymore. To be honest, I think to your point, Jack, it's time to say the market has shifted. This is already happening with Excel through state legislation. We really are appreciative of that. And the new work is in a different space. And this is why we want to pivot.
and we could put the energy subcommittee on this instead of just Jack, if that's scaring you a bit.
Yeah, when she said Jack, I assumed energy.
But I do,
Saying Jack.
I just got really big. I was like, what did I just give?
But
You're like, I didn't sign up for this.
I do want to make a note on that though, with the energy subcommittee. If we could appoint a chair. I'm looking at the two current members right now.
Co-chair?
One of you wants to take on being the chair, as in you email and schedule the times that we meet. That would be very helpful for me. I will still contribute.
It's not among my skills.
I will send out. I will send out meeting invites.
So professional.
No limits.
Oh, great.
Cool.
Do
Okay,
we nominate chairs in here? Is there a process for that, or
I
is
think
it
a subcommittee can just select its own.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
noted?
So we could keep having the discussion of like what our goal is moving forward, but for using the pie resources that we have available to us right now, what we kind of got from Becca is, do you want us to help you word this goal and figure out what that language is? Which I said, that's probably not where we're leaning, but we'll bring it up to the board. Or do you want us to help you with putting together another action plan of strategies of how to meet your goal. And so those are kind of the two options that we have
There's-
dangled before us. So what do we go back to Pi with
Yeah.
from tonight's discussion? When she's asking us, do you want to help with language for the goal, or do you want to help with strategies for achieving the goal?
Honestly, I think Jack can do all of that.
So what do we want to
So-
use Pi for?
So
I
Jack,
just
do you
ask for
want
beneficial
Pi to
education
help you with that?
And there's gonna be a gap because they're gonna have to go back and they're gonna have to approve it. They're doing more and more of these throughout the state.
What did we? I don't think we even signed an MOU with them, did we? We're just doing the
Graduate,
lower level support
Graduate
where we're
support.
not having an official MOU, yeah. So I don't know if that's.
I remember there
like,
being
that,
discussion.
getting them to do that kind of electrification plan out for us would then involve a different MOU than whatever organization we're operating in.
it probably would. Yeah, it do an updated MOU. How long was the agreement for what you have now?
18 months?
Oh, so you just signed this.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, so,
You have beneficial experience.
so we have graduate support through July 2025.
Okay, so it was just 6
It was
months.
just 6 months, which is why it is very basic. So then we can talk about a more involved one starting after July.
It's actually perfect timing then, because it'll take that
Yeah.
much time to get an MOU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do think it's beneficial to have Pi then support the energy subcommittee in
Mhm.
that work.
Finish out the next few months.
Yeah,
What do you guys think? There's a subcommittee.
If, I think if we were to put together an action plan, I would want to get other expert eyes on it.
So
uh,
Pi.
Going forward, so I think I'd actually probably prefer the like. Frame something, get a professional review as the MO. And just because I want to make sure I haven't lost the thread, we're talking about for renewable energy, not for beneficial electrification. We think beneficial electrification is beyond the scope for the next 6 months with Pi.
It's only till July.
I think so.
Yeah.
For the next 3 months with
3
it.
months,
Yeah.
we're in April.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Because it's gonna be a much larger plan.
And we start talking about an MOU with them for that
I
instead.
think so, if
Sure.
they're willing to entertain it, but they're gonna have to strategize.
Yeah.
But only if you guys agree, you know? And again, it's gonna be a carrot, not a stick. Like, what makes sense? How do we connect our residents with opportunities, with resources?
Yeah, I think getting a plan from Excel is not the same thing in my mind as like setting a goal or trying to get to electrification. So I'm like 100% in support of getting that information back from Excel and understanding what that roadmap might look like, what our obstacles are to achieving electrification. All of that, I think, is super beneficial information. I'm just hesitant of then partnering that with any type of strict goal towards pushing electrification, at least right now.
They'll help you identify realistic goals.
Yeah.
Based on
Yeah.
just general adoption rates. And then Netherlands specific where we are now. Boulder County may have some data we could use to kind of track some of that with their rebates. We can see what historical adoption has been. And then the other thing I wasn't thinking about is electrification of the built environment often comes with on-site renewable energy.
Mhm.
So like these may dovetail really well together. Because like you said, it
I
is more
think that they-
expensive.
I mean, if you have a clean energy goal, I think you also need to account for load growth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, these goals are out.
It's true.
Okay, do you feel like you have the direction you need in this? process?
Yes, and do you
And
feel like
energy.
you have the direction?
And
You
I'm
need-
happy to join your subcommittee meetings if you want me there, just let me know. You just have to post that there'll be 2 of us there.
I have some
Yep.
beers in the check.
Heck, yeah. Energy and beer, that's great, yeah. Would love you there, Melody. We'll find some time.
You just have to give me enough notice so I can post it.
Posting
Yeah,
24 hours.
I will coordinate with you after this online about what I need to watch out for and what I need to get you to get it posted.
Okay, perfect.
Uh,
And just because it is like a little bit extra work and I have to go to town hall in person and post it and I have to go on Civic Web and post it. Like it can also be on the town calendar. But I just ask that if people say they're gonna be there and it's gonna be 3 of you, please be there. Because then it makes it more worth it for me. Thank you.
And if it's 2, then don't need to post.
Don't need a post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe it'd be simpler if, not this. yeah.
We meet,
Whatever
and then
works.
we meet, and then you meet. I'm up for whatever you guys want.
We meet.
It's okay
And
if
then
we
all
all
3 of us meet.
meet. I don't mind doing it. I'm just saying.
That was it. It's totally
I mean,
fine.
you're supposed to be planning this, aren't you?
I'm-
What you signed up for?
I signed up for planning this.
I'm okay to post it. I just wanted to.
Yeah,
say
This
that.
requires a lot of those. Silly stuff.
Yeah.
On our end.
And if I can help, like, please reach out too.
Yeah.
So,
It's no problem adding a 4th person, once you have 3.
Once you have
What's
So-
the 3?
Yeah.
Quantum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Circling back to the original question, which is something to bring in front of the BOT and when to do that. Can we do just a simple statement of we recommend pushing this back? Like, what do we need to bring into the?
Would it be a whole new
Yeah.
resolution, do you think?
It'd just be amendment of the current one, or
Mhm.
yeah, you could do a whole new resolution. I guess it really depends. 'Cause
I mean,
right
an
now the
amendment
amendment
might
just
be-
has 2025 listed, correct?
The amendment might be
I mean-
better, but we'll have to read the language in it.
Yep.
Yeah, if we review the language, it'll either be an amendment that gets brought to the board. Or again, having a draft of a new. So we can dig into that further,
Okay.
but yes, an amendment would be way easier.
I guess.
And I'm sure they're gonna wanna know what our current status is, like how
Yeah.
far we are. So we should have 1 or 2 slides of
Yeah.
background information of like where we are and why we're here.
Yeah.
So then
We're
the other thing is that if we bring this to the BOT, I can bring it in an AIM and then we can have Energy Subcommittee SAB present that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so essentially just how it works, because I think John was kind of explaining this last time, but I don't know that it ended up getting across very clear, is that we ultimately have to review them and like staff writes the aim, but like how I do it for the PC is like there might be very specific language that they use that I address in the aim to make sure that that's getting across. And then any presentation, even like with a consultant, a presentation is just a presentation that gets attached, so. It's not like we have to like write to everything, you guys have that. Freedom, it's just we have to kind of craft the aim so that. The board,
I
we
have
get the
s-
direction from the
Yeah.
board that we want.
And that
That
was
makes
the
sense.
clarification that I was missing, because I have submitted aims
Yeah.
for SAB
Yep,
separate from the aims submitted by the sustainability coordinator. So
Yeah.
I have written them,
yeah,
added them to the packet under Melanie Baumhover, Chair of SAB, and it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with the coordinator.
yeah, I think, I do know that has been done in the past, I think that's just how John is wanting this to be done, and
Yeah.
essentially just like, and I think it could be too, like, something that I've done is like when I've had, for instance, like a business owner make a request, is I would write my aim, like, this is the direction, this is what they're asking for, and also here's this attachment of their narrative.
Yeah.
And so maybe it
Yeah.
comes in the form of like that. I do know what you're saying though, like I've had board of trustees members write their own names before.
Yeah.
I just don't, I get, there's a change that's coming, I guess, so.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, so like still have the freedom, say what you want me, and then I guess decide as like, does that make more sense to come in an attachment to the aim? But it's really just so Cass can get the direction from them for you all that we know the board is like, yeah, absolutely. And it's like just making sure we have that clarity.
And it would be an
Well,
action.
I think the
Yeah.
next topic, which shouldn't be very long, is maybe more helpful to have this discussion around, which is the
Yeah.
scorecard.
True.
So I reached out to the BOT. I finally heard back, and they are saying that the earliest possible time we could do a work session between the SAB and BOT is June. And so at the last meeting, what we had discussed is if we can't do a joint work session soon, to bring a a scorecard item and present it to the BOT. So in that case, who's writing the aim and how do we present that in the way
Yeah.
that is gonna work for y'all?
Yeah. I think it would probably just be whoever, like if Sab wants to work
'Cause,
directly.
You know, we'll
with
be
Cal.
working on a presentation of
Yeah.
sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think really the aim would just be like, here's the agenda item, like something I've done with consultants in the past is like, here's the agenda item. This is a basic summary. Now, this person and this person are gonna be making a presentation. And maybe just like a form of like, the last thing be like, staff is asking for direction on this. Maybe it's not even as in depth, but I would think for this one, it would be like a history. You guys obviously have like history. And it can just kind of be a working aim, if that makes sense, like where Cass drafts one up, you guys review it and maybe just, hey, this is additional language we would like to add.
Or if you want to write a letter and we attach it to
Yeah,
that, and then
something like
my
that.
aim is really,
Does
really.
that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yes.
I know, it's the
Except for
pain.
the question is gonna be from the sustainability board, like
Yeah.
at what point and what processes are the scorecard invoked? And we're gonna have a recommendation.
Yes,
And that's a discussion from the SAB to the BOT.
yes,
And
yeah.
if the aim is submitted by a staff member, I guess it just doesn't, it's not as clear to me that.
Well, I think it
staff
could
going
still
to the
be, the
BOT.
direction would more so be like staff saying SAB is looking for and these things. So like, even though it's written by Cass, it can still have like SAB has this question, because that's also the same question I'm sure Cass has.
Yeah.
So I think it's just we frame the wording to be that, what you're saying now. I know it's kind of like making a long process. I think it too could be that you draft a name and maybe it's just like Cass's kind of, has the final review and then adding like our staff language that we ask in typically all of our aims to kind of keep them a little uniform.
Or if you want to have it be addressed to the BOT from SAB, I would say the best thing to do would be to write a letter and just attach that to the
Yeah.
aim. Because then it doesn't
And
have
then
to
we
be
just create
anything.
a simple aim of
That makes
like,
sense.
Yeah.
you guys are gonna be presenting staff, SAB would like this feedback. And that's really just
The
all our aim
input,
is
yeah.
an introduction to
Yeah.
you guys essentially taking over. Like, that's what I honestly do for all my consultants. Like, I don't know what all they're gonna say sometimes. So I'm like, hey, the SE group is here and this is so and so and so and so, and they're gonna present. And then I just leave it at that and then just let the feedback and the like conversation happen freely versus like,
I like the letter.
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So question though, before we get to the weeds, so the SAB bylaws really clearly state what the scorecard is for and when it's supposed to be.
And I
used.
think that it is clear on some things, the bylaws are, but we're still missing the piece about the original language that also tackled events and things that are not capital improvement projects that the town owns, such as teen daycare, where the land is owned, but the project is not owned by the town. So does that fall into this language we have crafted about capital improvement projects, number one? And then number two is the BOT, it really isn't clear on what the scorecard is used for and how it works. And so
Just a 101.
regardless, we should do a refresher
Okay.
on that, I think.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it'll help having me there too, now that like the sustainability kind of falls under planning, because then also we've lost like the education of when it's triggered as well. I mean, I have a idea based on reading that when I would essentially trigger it on my end, like, oh, this makes sense, staff should be using the scorecard, but I think it helps now we have like a unified team where we've kind of lost that.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
So if everybody in approval of our current plan, Erica and I will work on some sort of scorecard presentation in conjunction with CAPS for the BOT, and we'll try to get that on the agenda.
Okay.
When we can.
Instead of a work session. Or,
Yes,
I think
Okay.
it before the work session.
So
We
still schedule
wanna
one.
Have the work
Okay.
session in June, and we can cover anything remaining on the scorecard, any updates we might be making to the scorecard. We can cover this kind of electrification, 100% renewable.
So do you guys want Cass reaching out to John to figure out when you can get on board meeting?
I can work with John on the work session.
Or if you guys are just gonna do it as
On
an
getting
agenda
into a
item,
BOT
so that way we
agenda
can
item.
give them a deadline on when to have this presentation to us.
Yep.
If they're just gonna end up,
Oh, I see what you
because
mean.
June is
Yeah.
so far, it sounds like you guys wanna try to get on.
And I
Yeah.
can just do it too, since I've been talking with John about this.
Yeah.
Like I could.
That's
just
fine.
follow-
Yeah, that works.
Reply to his email chain if
That
that
works
makes it
too.
easy.
Yeah,
I
just-
Just
Loop
keep
us-
us in the loop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loop us in on,
that, yeah.
Okay.
so then we have like, or like deadlines. Go
Yeah.
ahead, sorry.
That sounds great.
I wanted that clarification. for that.
Short item for Cassidy, can you extend the meeting invite to like an extra hour or hour and a half? So that,
Ooh.
The AI.
so that my
Hey.
AI is super timely and it stops.
Yes, I saw
when we-
that. Yeah, I got the notification. It was like, oh, we never end that.
I'm not sure that I can because
Okay.
Peter made the meeting.
We can log into his
It's-
email.
It doesn't have to happen
Oh.
now, but if we could
We can-
have
we
it.
can do it.
Oh, in the
be lo-
future.
Yeah. if
Oh,
it
it's not
be,
good. Okay.
Like longer than we'll ever stay in the future, that would be
Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah,
it's not, it's not a
7
big,
PM.
it's not a big deal. I can always go back to the video and,
Yeah.
and clean up
We
the
can-
notes.
We'll figure that out.
Can I,
Okay.
can I ask real quick, Jack, do you have something else?
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to the last agenda item about just make sure we're clear on next steps for the energy plan and potentially beneficial electrification. Because the original item was having an aim to bring to the board, and I wanted to understand, are we aligned on what that aim looks like? Are we gonna push that aim off until?
I think we should come back to one of these meetings before we bring anything to the BOT on that. Yeah.
That's helpful. I just wanted that to be clear.
I think anything that goes before BOT, we all have to vote on.
Yeah.
So I guess our goal would be at the
Oh.
next meeting to have something. If that seems, the next SAB meeting, if that seems doable.
That sounds. that
Have a
sounds-
draft
What?
presentation for the BOT or whatever, yeah.
1 month,
Draft aim
Does that sound
and
good for you?
presentation to the BMT.
3, 4, so that'd be May 22nd.
Okay.
So one
Your
question,
draft.
if possible, can we, for this work session with the BOT, can we reach out to them to ask what they would be excited to talk about as well? So we can present, like, here's what we'd like to discuss with you. I'm just curious if there's things that like they're mulling around or discussing or hitting barriers with that we could all discuss from their perspective too.
Yeah, I think it'd be good for maybe Melody if you would want to ask John that. Just.
I know we've tried.
Forward.
I haven't
Yeah.
gotten any answers.
Okay,
but-
I can chat.
Because
I
the-
can chat with
because-
him.
The work session's gonna be more than just the scorecard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I mean.
I think it
Exactly.
feels appropriate to reach out to them and just say like, hey, we're excited about this work session. I don't know if we have a specific date in June yet. And then just seeing if there's, like to actually have an agenda. So you make sure you're getting the most out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And if
feel like
there's
that's
things that like
appropriate.
we're not even aware of, that
Yeah.
would be helpful for them to have a discussion
So
and
that-
collaborate on.
Be an aim? Should I bring that as an aim, saying SAB wants to
No,
talk
I
about
think we
these
should
things
reach
or?
out to John to get a specific date for June, because we're all gonna need to collaborate together to figure out what that day is in June.
Okay.
And then maybe it happens then. Well,
Yeah.
let Cass and I ask him what that would look like, and then I can definitely get back with you. And I can just shoot out an email. I'm not gonna wait till next meeting.
So the BOT has a work session scheduled with NDDA. They have a strategic planning work session scheduled and then a town hall with BVSD. So our work session would likely be June or later. That's as much as I have update.
Okay,
And that they want it to be scheduled for a regular scheduled BOT meeting slot.
Okay,
So would that
that's
be,
interesting.
So it's
Not
so
a
Tuesday night.
special? Oh, like the hour before? Or,
It says, I prefer to schedule on a night of one of our regularly scheduled BOT meetings. So yeah, I would assume an hour
As
before.
before,
Okay.
yeah. That's tight. Okay.
yeah, you only have an
Tell me-
hour.
Well, and I guess and I'll try to clarify this with John too. I'm confused because I understood that the reason we were going to the BOT is because the BOT felt like they didn't know what we were doing. But they're clearly not that concerned about not knowing what we're doing if they're not gonna hold a work session with us till June.
It would
Do you
just
see
be,
what I'm saying?
yeah, but it's also, there's just already things already scheduled. June in the grand scheme of things is not too far away.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's, I can tell you it's packed.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the next-
well, just when we were trying to edit and update the scorecard 2 months ago, and we were kind of halted in the
Yeah.
process to do this instead, and now that's being pushed out till June. So that's
Yeah.
where I'm,
So are you guys bringing it as a,
I'm getting mixed signals from the DOT.
Yeah.
They want from us.
are you guys bringing it as a presentation and following up with a work session too, or is he trying to do it the same? Did you get that clarification?
We would bring it as an informational item,
Okay, okay.
and then the work
That makes
session would be
Would be
further discussion.
Further, okay, perfect. Sorry,
And
I got a
hopefully-
little confused there.
Hopefully at that point, we don't even need to talk about. this
Hopefully,
program.
yeah, and then it could be more productive conversation about other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, about actual goals beyond 2025.
What other big town plans are coming up?
So discussion about affordable housing, there is a potential piece of land that developers are interested in developing affordable housing on to reach our Prop 123 goal, but there has to be some conversations had with the BOT before more information than that comes out. But I should have an update by May, so probably your next meeting, I'll actually have like a bigger update on that. Other than that, it's very just small, single family housing developments. I'm not sure. I mean, Eldora is obviously still up in the air. I know there's this whole water fill station with utilities. But beyond,
Yeah, there actually
nothing.
was an interesting letter to the
You saw that?
editor about that.
yeah, I'm
that-
happy to share that with everyone.
I'm not sure. I don't know if the claims that he's saying are correct in that letter to the editor, but if they are, it's something to.
I think there's
about.
gonna be more conversations had on that based on that letter. I think there's gonna be more to come, and I'm happy to share that with you all.
Maybe we can put that on for
Yeah.
another SAB meeting.
Yeah, because I know they're gonna have more, because there's been an approval to start it, but now there's this letter, and so I think the board is interesting in maybe addressing more on it. So it might be good to have some input from you guys or thoughts. For sure. But other than that, no big development stuff yet. With the sub area plan now, actually, I guess, being adopted and then going to the board, the DDA is really gonna start using that as their guideline. The wayfinding is starting here soon. We just had a kickoff meeting with their group, and so we're gonna be scheduling a walkthrough with all the signs, and I've started with helping them with their process with CDOT, because there's 5 wayfinding signs that will fall on CDOT's row, and then the remainder will be permitting through me. So that's like kind of their first start, but they will, yeah, really start addressing this plan and what's doable or where grants are. And then, you know, if Ron is going to make any movement, which I'm not sure, I'm not speaking for or against, I don't know what the plans are there, if there's gonna be some stuff there. But yeah, I think that's really now the board and DDA are kind of going into their like strategic planning. Obviously uniformed, because the DDA will be kind of doing their work session with the board to make sure they're all aligned with that.
That's great.
Yeah, so probably more to come from that. And if you guys haven't seen the sub area plan, I'm also happy to send that out to you, the final. And it's a pretty good plan, but it's definitely, yeah, it's big. It's some changing, and the PC did start talking about last night, which will go before them again. We were talking about the sub area plan addresses an overlay district, like in your CBD zone. So essentially you have maybe stricter criteria or design standards for how that zone looks. Versus right now where it's just kind of like uncodified design standards is essentially what we have. I just provide it to someone and I'm like, here you go, but they don't actually have to like stick to those that standard. And so we did start that discussion with the PC last night. They're interested in hearing more and seeing like how that would benefit, like pulling that out. John brought some language from Idaho Springs, how they did it. They kind of had essentially tables that address specific setbacks and different heights. And so really what it would be is our sub area plan mentions like maybe looking at changes in heights specifically for that like commercial area. And so if there was an interest from the board and the PC and other boards to make changes like that, it would kind of break it out in its own like yard and bulk table almost essentially, and like standards that way. And so that's kind of that, because of this approval, we kind of started the conversation, okay, let's look at these recommendations and see from a land use side what the PC is thinking about starting to have those conversations and bring them to the board. And the board will now have this to kind of start moving forward as well. So I think all the boards are kind of starting to look at it and see what makes sense for us to move on or talk about or explore or get public comment on to like, since it's such a big plan, break it down. So that's really a lot of stuff going now, but
Is
Yeah.
there, Cass, are you part of with any of those NDDA and BOT meetings?
No.
I would advocate
Right.
that if sustainability can be involved sooner
yeah.
and often, that you'll probably see opportunities
Mhm.
that others may not. I know there's a lot of sustainability champions on those groups, but
Mhm.
it might be nice just to have somebody from that sustainability perspective present.
Yeah.
If possible.
Yeah, it could be that, we just make sure it works hour-wise with you and maybe have you on for those items to be able to speak to that. That might make sense, like in
Yeah.
that setting you're kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just.
And that's a great point. Like this is like the sustainability coordinator just started working into this role. So I'm trying more and more, like Cass is on our, we're going to be doing our IBC updates this year to 2024. That's what the board ended up voting for instead of going to 21. So we're going to 24. Yeah, we've got 24 in line. So our 21 has already kind of been drafted with the help of some of our state and state built like some free resources that we have. So 24, we're kind of working through that. So you'll start getting engagement on that. We'll start bringing that here. But Cass is on that subcommittee. So yeah, I'm kind of figuring out the little pieces in which bring you on, but that makes total sense. I think when we start having these conversations, like the strategic with the board and these overlay districts, yeah, it makes sense to have those, or at least, hey, we've had this conversation. This is how we had it with the PC. And then I bring it kind of as an item to you guys as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think it could happen.
One other thing, where are we at with our sustainability plan? You know, we had one written. What, 20,
2014.
and then has it been updated? We've just kind of gotten to work plans.
No,
So-
what we've moved to, and this was at the request of Boulder County after we did the Community Champions grant thing,
Yeah,
was these kind of goal documents for a shorter time period, for like 1 to 5 years.
so there is a grant from the state right now. It's Local Government Climate Action Accelerator Grant Program. It definitely would be a target of some of the recent executive orders, but it sounds like it's still moving forward. And I wonder if it might be worth putting our name in the hat to have some resources and funding to put towards like a larger sustainability plan.
We have talked about wanting like a climate action plan.
I don't know if I would title it climate just with the next 4 years. But I, yes, all those same things under the title of maybe something that may fly under the radar a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Just throwing it out there. Could be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's great resources already.
Well, and so is the grant available to pay like a firm to write one for us? Then like,
so.
yeah, I'd be totally in support of that.
I think so. I don't know what the application looks like, but
Yeah, we'd have to pull it.
I can
see
look
if there's
into
a-
it.
'cause we have no money this year,
right.
just to put it very blunt.
Yeah, I can look into that. Did we get everything we needed for the scorecard? Like-
We identified that should put together a presentation.
Slash letter, yeah.
Okay.
Draw.
That will draft the.
Yeah, I sent out an email to John and Billy, so we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see what they say as far as scheduling us
Okay,
and that
perfect.
kind of stuff.
Um,
So yeah, If we want to move on the agenda.
Item number
It's
two.
getting
Yeah.
late.
Okay.
Item number two.
Item number 2.
We lost Tom
Discussion.
and Patricia online, just so everyone's
Oh, I'm sorry,
aware.
guys.
Yeah,
Did you,
Like, well,
yeah, I was gonna say, did it just drop off or is it Wi-Fi?
oh, they just dropped off.
Okay.
So I'll try and go through my updates quickly. For the level 3 EV charger, there's really not much of an update, right? At least,
Oh, yeah, so they've ordered all the parts, but obviously we're experiencing some fun stuff with orders right now, so.
Mhm.
Not everything has came in yet. When everything has, then they'll work directly with us and the contractor that we have been using to just start replacing each item and testing this thing out.
And our issue is just with the level 3 because of like the manufacturer, and we're not having the same issue with the level 2, right?
No, level 2 is fine as far as I know. I mean, it hasn't flipped here and there. Yeah,
So-
no.
Is it like
No,
all
it's
of the
just,
chargers?
the level 3 has never been up. This is literally,
Yeah.
this got tasked on me last year when Miranda left, and so I've been working on this probably about a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
you're
do
killing
you,
it.
We've
Very
made
good.
progress, so.
Rich and I are really excited to use the level 3 as soon as
Yes.
it's done.
I have no need for the level 3.
Okay.
but, Unless you're on a road trip or you don't have home charging, there's no need.
So expensive.
So the level 2 charger, I put some numbers in the staff report, which is also linked on the email Britt sent out.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, because we were having issues with the SAB thing where like I couldn't even send SAB an email all of a sudden, and then Britt, you couldn't either.
Yeah.
And so then she had to send it to you all like individually almost.
And you're tested.
is that
for-
because of what I'm wondering, is that why, because they were playing around with the system to try to
think
get
so.
me in, that it ended up?
I don't know. So with your test email, did anyone here receive Melody's test email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I didn't know we were supposed to respond.
No, you didn't. You're not. You're not. You're not.
That's why I said this is the test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
That is great though. So that's gonna be
So
the
we
next
fixed
item.
That problem now. You can email the SAB email and it
Yeah.
will go.
So we actually don't need to talk about that
As
next
long
item.
as you guys enter in our individual emails that are gonna be used, like they had to do something.
Yeah. We'll ask them to do that. They basically have to check some special box,
Yeah.
is what I understood.
For, I would like these guys to also be able to email.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
I'm gonna ask them now that I know that it works for yours.
Yes.
That ask them to do
everyone
that.
has that capability because you guys are the only board that's an issue.
So yeah, it seemed really
It
weird.
used to be.
No,
No,
no, I
seemed
know. I'm
weird.
so annoyed.
So
Okay,
Sorry.
cool.
But it's solved now.
Yeah.
it's solved now.
Great.
So with the back to the level 2 charger, we have been seeing, around like 50 to 80 sessions a month, between like $250 and $300 in revenue each month. And in the last 5 months, January had the highest revenue and highest number of sessions. The average session is about 1.5 hours charging time, and that is skewed a little bit by the car being plugged in, but that's just some numbers for you. For bag fee remittance, this first quarter, we received $705.96 from 3 businesses. So BNF was included. $690 of that was from BNF. So the majority of the remittance is from BNF, and so it's great that they're remitting the fee now.
Yeah.
And we aren't enforcing it for quarter 1. We said we're going to start enforcing it for quarter 2, so I expect more businesses to remit. One thing that I did talk to Wild Bear about, because they're remitting, is that if like their bag fee ends up being, $1 a quarter is all they're remitting to us, then like that seems like unnecessary for any small business to be like remitting that small of amount each quarter, especially if they're trying to do it online because of the fees that we're charged. So we're going to look at potentially amending that and making it so that like if you're only remitting, under a certain amount, you only have to remit those fees annually, because it really doesn't make a big difference for us. But like for BNF, it would make a
Yeah.
difference.
The only thing I'll say as a consideration as like a business owner is I would suggest that we do that in a if you have filed less than $5 per quarter for the last 4 quarters, then we're gonna switch you to an annual reporting basis.
Yeah.
And I still think
Cause
they
then
should
you just,
submit.
then you're not worried about people on the upfront lying and saying, oh no, we're not gonna use that many bags. We just need to submit annually, blah, blah, you know.
Yeah, and I still think they should submit quarterly, but maybe not pay, only pay.
But maybe pay.
Yeah,
That
that's my thoughts, because otherwise, like, if you're not keeping up with it either,
Yeah.
like,
then
at the
you're
end of the
gonna
year,
lose
you're
that
guessing.
information.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
So something along that lines, looking for an amendment like that, like, yes, you still have to submit it, but does it make sense for you to pay $1.05 right now if you're not typically a business that is just gonna bring us cash?
Yep.
Yeah, that's.
Cause yeah, we had the carousel, I didn't get my paperwork in, I will at some point. We're gonna be in that same
Yeah.
boat that Wildberry is, cause I
Right.
think we paid $4 for like 6 months last year.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it might make more sense to just do like, especially if you're paying by credit card, because otherwise we take on like half
The
of the fee.
fee, yeah,
Yeah, so it's like, it might make more sense for like $10 at the end of the year, because I can justify that fee versus
Yeah.
like $1 where I'm losing pretty much all of it, so.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. So the $200-$300 from the EV chargers, is that after paying the electricity?
No.
No,
Okay, so
So-
if, are you making a profit after electricity?
We could ask Rita to get us what that number looks like.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
I'd be
but-
curious where those funds are going, right?
I believe that what they projected, the reason for the pricing was that it
Cover
was going to
electric.
cover electricity costs plus the cost of replacing that infrastructure in 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, because we actually, the numbers went down for the charging, how much that we charge per hour or whatever it was. 2 years ago, maybe, or last year at least, I don't know, that it went into effect, because that really is the whole point, not for us to like make a profit, but for us to be able to pay.
Replace the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and replace which that did get moved, because it was on one side of the visitor center and it got replaced and updated a bit on the opposite side besides the level 3.
It would just be nice to confirm that that is going into an account so that if they do need to be replaced, the money's there.
Yeah,
The other question was the bag fee.
hmm
So is that going into a zero waste pot?
Mhm.
Because the state is requiring that those funds are
Yep.
spent on waste diversion.
I believe so. I'll
I
double
believe
check.
it goes into that zero waste line item.
I'll email Rita.
I am keeping
The
track,
same-
so I know how much we should have in our, like,
It should be going to, from what I remember, the same place that the C and D fees go.
So then we should, yeah, but if C and D is going.
Oh, we don't have like a C and D anymore. So it's like now people get charged. How it works is there's a sustainability fee, and that essentially goes for like Cass's time of like that C and D paperwork and that and then they can get back half of the line item that says like Netherland permit fee, which is typically their highest line item. And so there's no like C and D. It got changed last year by Miranda. That's kind of how this works. I'm not sure that it still quite makes sense, but essentially, yeah, it's like they get half back of a larger line item number, and then the sustainability fee goes towards Cass's.
So there's still a construction and demolition.
Yeah. We
program?
still like encourage them through it. It's just not the same language essentially. But
Okay,
it's still, because we're kind of redoing our form, because the form is really hard with the 2 staff personnel we have for it. And so we're kind of trying to redo it a little bit towards Ned, but it's still, yeah, the same concept. The C and D paperwork that Boulder kind of originally started with us, like that program, and not a lot of people go for it, but
And it's applying to all permits now, whereas
All-
before it was only like certain.
yeah, so I
Level
don't
of
do it for
construction.
like solar, and then like new builds.
Mhm.
Doesn't really make sense for that kind of things, but everything else it does get charged for.
Mhm.
Because essentially there's some component of possible recycling or something, or just diverting properly. So we're still kind of working that out.
so you want to
And it-
probably keep track of bag fees separately because through
Yes.
state legislation,
Yeah.
that is required to be waste diversion. And I wonder if that could cover the Recycle Colorado membership.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, 2 months or 2 quarters or whatever, just one business would cover that 1,500.
Yeah, I don't think you have to do that, Paul. I think that just the community
Yeah, the 350.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, but again,
But that's less than what BNF submitted alone in just the first quarter. So
Yeah.
absolutely,
yeah, that's great.
that would be plenty of funding to cover that. So yeah, I think we'd like clarification on these different sustainability initiatives. What line items are they going into?
Mhm.
Because having funding in general is new for us.
Um,
I will update you guys when I have an answer from Rita.
I just realized that the link on the next item was broken, so I am putting it in again. But for the Cross Gold Mine, the only update is that, Dreams sent a letter to Grand Island Resources asking them to provide documentation from the state of Wyoming that they, as an entity, are currently registered and in good standing. They required that by April 21st. And so far they have
They
not,
filed on April 22nd.
yeah,
With the state of Wyoming.
yep, they filed on April 22nd. They sent a letter, to, I think to the guy from Dreams who signed like, and saying like apologize for the delay and all that, and basically kind of asking for a grace period. And I think he just like submitted another thing saying like this was done and received.
Yeah, I checked their status on April 22nd and it said filed April 22nd.
So so that's that update. And
Got a fun letter from her company packet in the mail.
I think
everybody in town got that.
oh boy,
Yeah.
nice.
It was before telling us about the meeting up there.
Oh yeah. And then, so the Wild Bear event went well. We gave away about 20 LED kits, which is what we brought with us. Melody and Erica helped me. We had a little art project. The link in that email Britt sent to my staff report, I included the final photo. It's just like kind of a collage of what, kids added to it. And also, we talked with Sam Peterson from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. He's interested in doing some kind of like coffee talk with residents. So I'm working on trying to arrange that potentially in conjunction with like a town talk so that we get like more people. And then I'll like, if that does end up being scheduled, like I'll tell Sab so that all of you can come if you'd like to and join in that. We have free LED kits at Town Hall, so please tell your neighbors to go pick one up. And go pick one up yourself if you need one. There's also tote bags with info about Switch Together, at Town Hall. And so far, we have 13 Ned residents signed up for that program, with 3 people have paid a deposit and are getting rolling on like the roof assessment side of things. Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, cool, like 13 people signed up, but it was like the 3 people have already paid and are doing something about it, which like you expect with this program that things will slow down, and this is pretty good for us. And then town cleanup day is June 7th. So we are asking for volunteers to help on that day. You would need to be at the transfer station at 7:30, and there's a mandatory safety meeting at 7:45. And I can also send out a reminder email about that, but I didn't see anywhere for you to like sign up to be a volunteer or anything. So just mark that on your calendars if you can make it.
So normally I haven't had stuff to dump, but this year I do. So if I want to volunteer,
You get a free.
how do I actually get my car and my stuff there in line? Do I need to have my car packed and all my stuff there at 7:30?
I'll ask Nikki what she.
Just
You
to
can-
make sure,
Thanks,
that-
but
they,
you
I know
can-
the dumpsters fill up by 10.
You
Fine.
can just drive by, dude. Like, it's fine. Like, just drive your car into that area. People are gonna look at you weird and be like, "Oh, what the hell?" But like, don't worry about it. Like, I'm
So
there
it-
every year. I work it every single year because I work at the dump, but I also do the town stuff too. But yeah, just like
No,
Yeah,
I
like a-
volunteered every year. I'm just saying with my car full of stuff, I'm not
Right.
gonna be a volunteer, go pull my car before the dumpsters fill at 10. So should I have my car packed and ready to go at 7:30 AM?
Yeah, have your car
Yeah,
packed. So I've done
yeah.
it a
Probably.
couple of years, and
Yeah.
then just let them know that you have stuff. So let Nikki know or somebody, and then as it slows down, they'll still have space. So then you can just kind of jump in. And
They'll-
even if it's full, they'll make space for you. So that's what I've had in the past.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that sound right, Ty?
yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or used
don't-
volunteers who unloaded us after the meeting.
Hey, and just so you guys know, they feed you too.
Yeah, burritos from Trish. They're
Yeah, they
amazing.
give you.
And
they
Are
give
you gonna get gluten-free stuff?
I
No.
don't think she makes anything gluten.
So you can't feed me. You can't entice me with that.
Well, I opened my burrito last year and just ate the insides.
I didn't get one.
No, I can't do
previously.
that.
So Cass,
Throw it up.
Yeah.
I think we've had the energy kits at cleanup day in the
Yeah.
past.
Yes, we have
So-
some there.
Yeah, and they've done
Ready.
pretty well. So
But there's probably also gonna be people who are like, I still have these from last year, but that's okay.
Yeah, we left a couple boxes at Public Works, so we could just, yeah.
Have
go-
them there for
Yeah,
that.
have them there
Yeah.
for the, yeah.
good
And
idea.
those advertisements will start in the Mountaineer next week.
Mhm.
What are you guys? You're doing mattresses. What about the bikes? I know that guy passed away a couple years ago.
It still says bikes.
We still accepted them last year.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
they're doing it.
Yeah, it should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
it's mattresses, electronics. I heard Billy
Paint.
use old paint,
Household hazardous
Stain.
waste there, Boulder County.
chemicals,
Batteries.
tires.
Mhm.
Tires is a big one.
Are you guys
Um,
still doing like secondhand fabrics?
Says fabrics on here.
Yeah,
But-
and
I
just so you know,
Sorry.
Erica, you can donate those fabrics in the clothing bins too.
Yeah, the USA again.
But I think they have to be like wearable clothes. Like
No,
it can't
no.
just be like random fabric, right?
No, you can just like, because we have people put fabric, like when I'm working there on any given day, people put fabric in.
But
them.
do the USA again, do they actually use that or do they just toss it if it's not like clothes?
As far as I know, they use it. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
it's-
double check with Billy or why can't I think of?
I would check because I've
His
heard the
name.
same thing, that the use again bins have had a problem in the area and the company itself is trying to figure out a better system to manage how much unusable fabric they get.
Exactly.
But then I was there at the transfer station with a bunch of pillows and they said they were fine to put in there. Like old
Uh,
pillows.
Who told you that?
Said
Do you
that.
remember?
I don't, but it was somebody working there.
Yeah, it says they want you to just fill it with gently used clothes and shoes.
Yeah,
That's what they advertise.
whereas other things should really go to Charm with their fabric scrap.
I just worry that
Well,
they just toss everything that's
in-
not.
And just an idea,
There's a
art
place in
parts,
Boulder that does.
just art parts. You
Yeah.
can donate. You can donate fabrics. So
Okay, art
Oh.
parts.
Is that down in Boulder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the place I'm thinking of. I buy all my craft stuff there.
And
Really?
maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Do they have good yarn?
And maybe that's
Yeah.
why
They have totally,
do it in
Nice.
Boulder.
yeah.
they have awesome stuff.
Yeah, they have all kinds of little knickknacks that if you're really creative, like art stuff.
Cool. That's cool. Nice. Well, that's all my updates. And then
Oh,
our last,
I was gonna
Email
say,
me.
the Peak to Peak Safety Fair, with Excel is
Oh, yeah.
this Saturday at the community center from 11 a.m. to 1.
Safety fair.
Yep, Peak to Peak Safety Fair.
wildfire safety, right, is mostly the thing.
Yeah, it's their, Excel's proposed, wildfire mitigation plan, if you want to submit feedback.
It's this Saturday.
Yeah, this Saturday
11.
from 11 a.m. to 1 in this room.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, so everybody knows, Wildfire Partners is back in town, where they come and do an assessment at your house, and
Yeah.
they do free work for you to bring you they don't report anything to insurance, but they make insurance like your house better.
Do you know, are they charging for the assessment, Ty, or is it free
No,
right now?
no, it's totally free.
Yeah, I just posted about it on our Facebook group,
Cool.
or on Facebook, if you wanna like check that out, cause there's 2 emails on there, you just need to email them to schedule it.
I can,
Right,
also-
and I can vouch.
Or
I
we can
did
send it out.
I'll just send
I
the
did-
brochure out.
I can vouch. I did it last year, and they did a good job. They really did. They got rid of a lot of like shrubs and stuff like that that are more flammable. They did a rock barrier around my house.
They-
They did that for free?
Yeah,
Wow.
It's free landscaping.
Did they do it for free or was it subsidized?
no, it's
Like,
totally free.
Portion
Man.
of it was paid.
So,
Wow.
Totally,
Oh,
We had them do a free assessment, but
yeah, same.
then
You
we
do all
were
the
doing the work.
Totally. 17 loads of trees and slash layer.
Still gotta get the crosscut saw out.
So Ty, I had heard from Boulder Watershed Collective
Yeah.
at the Earth Day event that there was some grants up to like $1,500.
for
Does
this-
anybody know? Yeah, and because the grants that I've seen are income qualified, not just like open-ended, but Boulder Watershed Collective is saying there's some that are just open to anyone. Does
Yeah,
anybody know anything
They,
about that?
the Boulder Watershed Collective sent out a mailer to all town of Netherland residents with something about wildfire preparedness. Like within the last couple months, I got it in my mailbox.
Yeah.
From wildfire, from the Boulder Watershed Collective. After they had done the plan, they were working on some sort of plan.
Yeah, community fire wise plan.
Yeah, I got like a pamphlet about what they can offer after that and information and tips to be fire safe. and all that. So I wonder if it's on their
I
program.
don't know, I can ask Andrew Jocelyn if he knows.
I think that would be helpful if you don't mind, Brett.
Yeah,
I know Magnolia, the lower section, so not probably at Netherland, more Boulder, but there has been so much work being done.
Mhm.
And a lot of it has got to be, and some of it's private, but a lot of it's got to be public too. Huge fires of slash, or huge